Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 25, 12 Years in the Blink of an Eye. The Radiant Church. The Holy Island. The 9th floor of the Radiant Temple. Staring outside the window, a hint of worry was on Haydn's face. Previously, Linley had made an agreement with the Radiant Church, allowing the Radiant Church to relax. After all, without the assistance of his supreme warriors and that terrifying rat-type magical beast, Linley, by himself, wasn't too great a threat. But they were only relaxed for 9 years. Because on the 9th year, the Radiant Church discovered a terrifying secret. Linley's human form had reached the saint level. Haydn's. An icy voice rang out. Asano, his devilish purple hair fluttering behind him, appeared in the middle of the 9th floor. Haydn's didn't turn. Calmly, he said, "Asano, what is it?" Asano had a hint of frustration in his voice. "Haydn's, the many experts of the church have been cooped up in the sacred isle for 3 full years. During these 3 years, you've ordered that we are not to go outside the sacred isle without authorization. Haydn's, can it be that just because of Linley, we have to live like this? And Haydn's, you must understand, the information we got came from an agent who overheard the conversation which Linley's son was having with Warden's son. That's the only information we have stating that Linley has reached the saint level in human form. The words of children are not necessarily true," Asano said unhappily. Because of this news, that Linley had reached the saint level in his human form, Haydn's asked Asano and the others to not leave the sacred isle. Haydn's remained with his back turned towards Asano. Calmly, he said, "Asano, first of all, Warden's son, Sina 11ne, is a very reliable and very meticulous youth. His words should be true. And secondly, when Linley was hidden within the O'Brien Empire, he had already reached the 9th rank. It has been over 10 years now. Given the rate of growth for Dragon Blood warriors, it is about time that Linley reaches the saint level in human form." Haydn suddenly turned and stared at Asano. "You should be very clear about how powerful Linley is. 12 years ago, he was only slightly weaker to you. Now that his human form has reached the saint level, his power should be more than 10 times greater than before. Even if he didn't gain any additional insights at all, he can defeat you. But do you believe that in 12 years, Linley hasn't increased his level of insights at all?" Haydn's asked Asano. Asano was silent. He knew full well how quickly Linley trained. 12 years without any breakthroughs. Who would believe it? That ancestor of the Baruch clan who had only reached the imposed level when he reached the saint level as a human form Dragon Blood warrior was nonetheless able to rely on his terrifying post-saint level defense and power to fight head-on against peak stage saint level magical beasts. And Linley? In strength and battle chi, he was not inferior to his ancestor. Hahowever, he had a very deep understanding of the laws. He was even more terrifying to deal with than the ancestors of the Baruch clan. "Haydn's, the sacred isle doesn't need me to defend it, does it?" Asano asked. "Asano, if you truly want to leave the sacred isle, I won't try to stop you," Haydn said calmly. "But leaving the sacred isle means that you are betting that Linley won't find and kill you. Of course. Your fleeing abilities are top-notch. But I'm not certain if you would be able to flee from Linley." Asano had the doppelganger technique and was very fast. But he probably only had a 50-50 chance of fleeing and surviving if Linley encountered him. Fine. I'll wait until my doppelganger technique reaches the peak before I have another tussle with Linley." Asano sneered coldly, and then with a flicker, disappeared from the 9th floor. But although his words were tough, clearly he had already submitted. A hint of a bitter smile could be seen on Haydn's face. It was virtually impossible to keep tabs on someone at Linley's level. Right now, Linley's flying speed was far quicker than it had been in the past. It would take him less than half a day to cross the entire Yulon continent. This sort of speed, if he wanted to chase after and kill someone, he could definitely make sure that his opponent didn't have time to call for help. Yulon calendar, year 10,022. May. An area outside Baruch City with wildflower and wild grass swaying, their beautiful dance so moving to behold. Right now, there were 2 luxurious carriages and a squad of elite knights who were escorting them down this wild road. Your Majesty, we are at Mt. Black Raven. A knight said respectfully towards the second carriage. Immediately, a husband and wife couple stepped out of the carriage, along with a youth. The couple was Warden and Nina. Warden was much more mature now than he had been. He was the king of the Baruch kingdom, and his personal strength had dramatically increased as well. Warden's body emanated the aura of an expert. As for Nina, she wasn't as unripe as she had been in the past, her body was fuller, now, and she had become even more womanly. As for that 12 or 13-year-old child in front of them, who seemed so friendly and yet graceful. This child was the son of Warden and Nina, Sina Baruch. Wow, we are at Mt. Black Raven. An excited voice rang out from the carriage in front of them, and a very excited youth clambered out of the carriage. Taylor Tile. Sina laughed as he called out. Big brother. Taylor ran over happily. Taylor was relatively handsome, but he was far more energetic than Sina. At this time, yet another beautiful lady stepped out of the carriage in front, as well as a pretty young girl. It was Delia and her daughter, Sasha Shashat. Sasha looked quite similar to Taylor. The two of them were actually twins, but Sasha was born just a little while before Taylor was, and thus Taylor was forced to be the little brother. Sina was 12, while Sasha and Taylor were 10. We're about to see father soon. I haven't seen him in half a year. Taylor was extremely excited right now, and Sina's eyes had a hint of excitement in them as well. As the children of the Baruch clan, they all worshipped this person who supported the entire Baruch clan, Linley. The countless members of the Baruch kingdom also worshipped Linley. Linley was the spiritual support for the entire Baruch kingdom. There was no question about this. Although 12 years had passed, Delia's appearance hadn't changed at all. In fact, she actually now had a certain aura about her. Delia's children had blissful smiles on their faces. 12 years of peaceful, happy life. Delia truly was very satisfied. She stared at the distant Baruch city. The royal capital, Baruch City, had been expanded long ago. The normal population was over 1 million. Because Linley had brought the massive fortune he had taken from the kingdom of Fenley, the Baruch kingdom had easily weathered the first few tough years, and now, the entire kingdom was prospering very nicely. Raising her head to look at Mt. Black Raven, Delia's heart was already by Linley's side. Warden, Nina, let's go up the mountain. Delia laughed. Taylor, Sasha, Sina, follow along. Got it? Taylor said loudly. His sister, Sasha, was very quiet. The squad of knights came to a halt at the foot of Mt. Black Raven, while Warden, Nina, Delia, and the 3 children went up Mt. Black Raven together. Mt. Black Raven was as beautiful and graceful as ever. Following the little creek, they finally saw the lake in the distance. There were now 3 massive flattened boulders in the center of the lake. The central boulder was the first one which Linley had put down, and the stone house was naturally the one he had built long ago. As for the other 2 boulders, Linley had arranged them after his wedding, for when people came to visit for a while. A faint blue figure was currently fishing in the middle of the lake. Father! Taylor's voice rang out from far away. That blue-robed figure turned around. It was Linley. Linley looked slightly more mature than he had in the past, and looking at him from a distance, one had the sense that he had totally become one with nature. Linley immediately stood up and laughed, "Ha ha, Taylor." Linley's standing motion gave the sensation of moving with the wind itself, but it also gave an extremely solid, stable sensation as well. These 2 opposite sensations, merged into one person, was simply unimaginable for those who didn't personally experience it. Linley waved his hand. Bang! Part of the flowing water instantly came to a halt, forming a bridge of water. The other parts of the lake continued to flow normally. Taylor and Sasha, quite experienced, stepped directly onto the bridge of water and ran over. The water bridge was solid and durable. If one looked at it closely, one would see that on top of the water bridge were minute, tiny flows of air. Taylor. Come. Hug. Linley happily lifted Taylor into his arms, and the nearby Sasha immediately stared at Linley with her big, innocent eyes. Linley immediately reached out and lifted his beloved daughter into his embrace as well. Taylor, Sasha, it's been half a year since you've seen father. Have you missed father? Yes. Taylor said immediately. Every day. Linley's face instantly was covered with smiles. He now totally could understand how Grandpa Doering had felt towards him, and how his father's superficial severity masked a deep layer of love. Hey! Taylor, Sasha, Sina, you all came. A happy voice emanated from the skies, and a black shadow suddenly appeared in the middle of the lake. It was the magical beast Bibi, now 2 meters long. Linley looked at Bibi and couldn't help but laugh inwardly. Whenever Bibi was in front of these 3 juniors, Taylor, Sasha, and Sina, he always made his body a little bit bigger. As Bibi put it, if my body is too small, I won't have the aura of an elder. Uncle Bibi. Taylor immediately broke free from Linley's embrace and went to hug Bibi. When Taylor was young, Bibi often played around with Taylor. Warden chuckled. Big brother, let's sit down first. We can talk while eating. I brought many delicacies with me. As he spoke, the family sat down around a long rectangular table. And within his interspatial ring, Warden withdrew the freshly prepared dishes. The family began to eat. Big brother, have you heard of the big battle that occurred in the O'Brien Empire? Warden asked. With an O sound, Linley said, are you talking about half a month ago, how Olivier challenged Hateson to another duel? Olivier had already returned from the Arctic ice cap, returned with the aura of utmost confidence. Warden sighed appreciatively. Right. With just a single sword blow, he killed Hateson, who was famous for his defense. How terrifying. Hateson. Is it the Hateson who dueled with father at Mt to Jiao? Taylor raised his head up high and asked. This little fellow deeply venerated Linley, and he knew the details of Linley's famous battles as well as anything. Linley laughed and nodded. The nearby Delia also sighed in approval. This Olivier really is formidable. Just one sword blow. Hateson's defensive abilities were legendary. To be killed in one blow, Delia also sighed repeatedly. The nearby Sina suddenly looked at Linley and asked, Uncle, if you were to duel with Olivier again, can you win? Linley laughed calmly. Oliver's improvement speed was faster than I had anticipated. In just 12 years, he reached the level of being able to kill Hateson with one sword blow. Without actually competing with him, it's hard to say who would win and who would lose. Linley laughed. Boss, what are you being modest for? Bibi said unhappily. Hateson's defense was on par with yours in the past. But now, just by relying on your post-saint transformation, the defensive power of your draconic scales alone is on a higher level than the combined power of your draconic scales and pulse guard defense of 12 years ago. And now, your pulse guard defense is more than 10 times greater than before. In front of you, that Olivier isn't worth a fart. Even people on the second tier, like Asano, don't dare to offend you. I think, only the 5 prime saints are able to compete with you now. Warden also said, Big brother, you are the most powerful dragon blood warrior in the history of our clan. Why be modest? Warden and the others knew exactly how terrifying Linley had become. After 12 years of painstaking training, Linley's level of achievement in understanding the elemental laws of the earth and the wind was so high as to make Wharton and the others utterly speechless. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 26, Blue Heart Grass, Dragon's Blood. Power. Linley knew exactly how powerful he currently was. He had reached the saint level in human form. Once he dragon formed, his draconic scales were 10 times as powerful as they had been in the past. His strength and battle chi had also risen to terrifying levels. Linley could fully understand the reason why his ancestors, despite not having a high level of insight, could rely on dragon form alone to defeat peak stage saint level magical beasts. As for insight, the throbbing pulse of the world, he had already mastered 256 layers of vibrational waves. The more waves, the more difficult improving became. It had always been like that, but upon reaching the 256th layer of waves, after spending an entire year, he hadn't been able to improve whatsoever. It seemed as though 256 layers was some sort of limit. It can't be a limit. Linley was very certain. According to the war god, if one follows an aspect of the elemental laws to its limits, then one would enter the deity level. I'm far away from the deity level. So what exactly comes next, after the 256 layer level? Linley didn't know either. His understandings of the throbbing pulse of the world were unique, and there was no one he could ask for advice. All Linley could do every day was to try and immerse himself in the throbbing pulse of the world and try to make a breakthrough. As for the elemental laws of the wind, Linley continued to slowly but surely improve. He hadn't reached a bottleneck yet. However, spiritual energy really is hard to build up. After 12 years, I'm still only at the peak of the 9th rank. Breaking through to the Grand Mega Saint level really is hard. Linley sighed in his heart. If anyone else heard what Linley was thinking, they would have cursed him to hell and back. As a magus, going from the 6th to the 7th rank was one bottleneck, while going from the 9th rank to the saint level was the other major bottleneck. How could this bottleneck be so easily broken through? Linley looked at Delia, and he couldn't help but think back to that black rock which Bibi had given her on their wedding night. In just 12 years, Delia has advanced from the 7th rank as a magus to the 9th rank as an archmagus. Although she previously had already been at the 7th rank for quite a few years, this sort of improvement rate really is terrifying. Delia was already an archmagus of the 9th rank. After the wedding, Delia had discovered that it wasn't just her elemental essence affinity that had been raised to a terrifying level, she even was able to absorb mage force at an astonishing speed, and her spiritual energy rapidly increased as well. Her rate of improvement vastly outstripped Linley's. As Linley saw it, there was only one explanation for this change. That mysterious black rock. After the meal, Sina, Taylor, and Sasha were having fun by the lake, while Linley, Wharton, Delia, and the others all sat down. Big brother. Wharton finally brought up the purpose of their trip. Sina and Taylor were tested when they were young. The density of dragon blood in their veins hasn't reached the required level. It seems we'll have to use that method you spoke of in the past. Linley frowned. Oh. That's right. It is time to use fresh dragon's blood to activate the dragon blood in their veins, so they can begin training in the secret dragon blood manual early on. Linley nodded slightly. When Linley had chatted with the planar overseer, Hodan, he had realized there were far more dragon blood warriors in the history of the Baruch clan than the book had mentioned. The real number was very high, and they relied on dragon's blood. Would it be very dangerous? Delia was a bit nervous. As long as the dragon's blood is mixed in with blue heart grass, there is no danger at all to activating the dragon blood in their veins. Linley said with absolute certainty, while at the same time, he looked at the 3 children by the lake. Taylor and Sina need to have their blood activated. What about Sasha? Sasha. Wharton and Delia both looked at the distant Sasha. Sasha was just a girl. Although male warriors generally were somewhat superior to female warriors, that didn't mean girls couldn't become experts. Delia smiled calmly. Let her make her own choice. Linley nodded slightly. Become a dragon blood warrior. Taylor was the first to whoop in joy. Oh, I'll do it, I'll totally do it. I dream about being a dragon blood warrior like father. Wow. I'm excited just thinking about it. Sina nodded slightly as well. I'll do it. Linley, Wharton, Nina, and Delia weren't surprised. It'd be weird if any of the male children in their lineage passed on this opportunity. Now they all looked at Sasha. Sasha was very quiet. Although she was just 10 years old, the beauty she had inherited from Delia was beginning to show. I'll do it also. Sasha bit her lips, but nodded firmly. Delia stroked Sasha's head and praised, Sasha, in the future, you are going to be a powerful female dragon blood warrior. A smile appeared on Sasha's face. All right. Linley nodded. If that's the case, then Wharton, Nina, you can just hand Sina to me. I'll take the three of them to the mountain range of the setting sun to search for saint-level dragons. It's time to engage in some bloodletting with saint-level dragons. Linley chuckled. Engage in bloodletting with saint-level dragons. These words filled the eyes of Sasha, Taylor, and Sina with shock and joy. I'll go as well. Wharton was somewhat nervous. Hey, little Wharton, you're only at the 9th rank. Even after transforming, you are only an early stage saint. Bibi flew over here and said unhappily, do you think your level of insight is comparable to the boss of 12 years ago? Although he was also an early stage saint after transforming, in terms of insight, Wharton was far inferior to Linley. I'll go with the boss. Shit, if one dragon comes we'll kill one dragon, if two comes, we'll kill one, then capture the other one to use as a mount. Bibi was extremely boastful, but he had the strength to back it up. After the past 12 years, Bibi's power was far stronger than it had been 12 years ago as well. Wharton nodded and laughed. Since you are going as well, Bibi, then I won't be worried at all. The squad was thus decided as being, Linley, Bibi, Delia, and the three kids. Delia was responsible for taking care of the kids, and Bibi's job was to protect them. As for Linley, he would deal with any saint-level dragons. The skies stretched off far into the distance, and a few white clouds were drifting here and there. A 10-meter-long magical beast was soaring through the air at high speed. It was the transformed Bibi, with Delia, Sina, Taylor, and Sasha on his back. Delia had cast a magic spell to form a protective invisible barrier, preventing the wind from scraping against the children's bodies. Wow, mother, that city is the biggest one I've ever seen. Taylor pointed below at a fist-sized city. Although the city seemed small from up above, the size of this fist was actually a huge space. A complicated look was in Delia's eyes. Sighing, she said, that is my homeland, the imperial capital of the Yulan Empire. The imperial capital of the Yulan Empire. Taylor, Sasha, and Sina all looked down. Hungry yet? Delia withdrew some food they had brought along from the interspatial ring. Bibi had transformed to 10 meters in length, and his back was naturally very wide. Given that Delia had then used magic to block the wind, this made Sasha, Sina, and Taylor feel as stable as when they were on the ground. They sat down and began to enjoy the food. Bibi flew very stably, with no turbulence at all. Delia, don't pamper those kids too much. Linley, flying alongside Bibi, said with a laugh as he saw this. Delia looked at Linley. Linley, don't reprimand me. You see your children so rarely, and you are going to reprimand me. Linley immediately didn't dare to say a word. He actually did feel very guilty. Sometimes, he would go off and train for months at a time. He did indeed feel as though he owed the kids and Delia a lot. Linley looked down at the boundless earth. They weren't too far from the mountain range of magical beasts now. The three major gathering grounds for magical beasts in the Yulan continent were the mountain range of magical beasts, the forest of darkness, and the mountain range of the setting sun. Of course, other places also had magical beasts, but they were much rarer in those places. But in these three places, a terrifyingly high number of magical beasts congregated. By now, both the forest of darkness and the mountain range of magical beasts had a deity present. Thus, Linley had chosen to go to the mountain range of the setting sun. A long time later, the peaks of the mountain range of the setting sun appeared in the horizon. The mountain range of the setting sun started from the Dark Alliance, followed the southern boundaries of the Yulan Empire, and then intersected between the Rhine Empire and the Burning Desert. In truth, the mountain range of the setting sun and the Burning Desert were both the southernmost points of the Yulan continent. If one went past the mountain range of the setting sun or the Burning Desert, they would enter the boundless southern seas. Wow, it's so big. It seems to be even longer than the forest of darkness, Taylor said in surprise. Taylor and the others had flown on Bibi's back before and had seen the forest of darkness from the air. Sina said, Taylor, according to the books, the mountain range of the setting sun and the mountain range of magical beasts are both very long, but only around 1,000 kilometers wide. As for the forest of darkness, it is thousands of kilometers long, but also 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers wide. Taylor nodded in understanding. Get ready to go down, Linley suddenly said. The giant Bibi next to Linley suddenly dove down along with him. When they were only a few hundred meters away from the mountains, the two halted in mid-air. We're going to fly at this height for now. Bibi and I are going to go meet some dragon saints, Linley said to Delia and the kids. Don't worry about us, father, Taylor said confidently. Linley, looking at his son, couldn't help but chuckle, and then split apart from Bibi. At the same time, he began to scan the below area with his spiritual energy. The mountain range of the setting sun didn't have fewer monsters than the mountain range of magical beasts. Naturally, there were quite a few saints as well. But the mountain range of the setting sun was very large. The saint-level magical beasts were scattered all over. To instantly find a saint-level dragon was not likely. HRM. Linley's spiritual energy suddenly discovered a saint-level magical beast, one which Linley was fairly familiar with. It was a violet-eyed gold-fur ape. This terrifying, 3-story tall saint-level beast suddenly noticed a human was scanning him. Who is it? The violet-eyed gold-fur ape's voice rang out like a bolt of thunder, and it raised its head to stare at the human in mid-air. Linley stood there in mid-air, transmitting his voice downwards. Linley of the Anarchic Lands. Excuse me for disturbing you. After finishing speaking, the violet-eyed gold-fur ape didn't bother with him any further. Saint-level magical beasts were more intelligent than even your average human. Ones that had lived a long time were very familiar with the experts of the Yulan continent. Some of the most powerful experts, such as Desri of the Anarchic Lands, Hayward, Tulili of the Great Plains, were known to them. Linley of the Anarchic Lands had also become well known amongst magical beast experts. As long as Linley didn't go too far, these saint-level magical beasts didn't want to fight such a peak expert either. After searching for quite a while, Boss, I found a saint-level dragon. It is a darkness element tyrant WYRM. Bibi's voice rang out in Linley's mind. Not hesitating at all, Linley flew directly towards Bibi at high speed. In the ground atop a mountain, Linley instructed, Sina, you and the other kids all stay here. Delia will take care of you, Bibi, no matter what, you have to protect them. Linley looked at Bibi, who said confidently, Don't worry, boss. My shadow-shaped doppelganger technique is able to create 4 now. Given Bibi's terrifying speed and his shadow-shaped doppelganger technique, even 3 ordinary saint-level magical beasts working in concert still wouldn't be able to hurt Delia and the others. Be careful, father, Sasha said. Linley began to laugh. Right. Just wait here. I'll go bring that tyrant Wyrm over. As he spoke, Linley flew away at high speed. Delia and the kids just stood there, watching. Fortunately, because they were on a hill, they could see far. A short while later, Linley arrived in the air above the tyrant Wyrm. The dragon race was divided into two types, the extremely strong and tough wingless dragons, and the magically powerful winged dragons. The tyrant Wyrm was one of the most powerful wingless dragons. Its enormous body was over 100 meters long, and its pitch-black, marble-like scales were terrifyingly hard. The tyrant Wyrm had already noticed Linley. Its massive eyes burned like fire as it stared at Linley. Who are you? Linley of the Anarchic Lands. Linley said. Linley. The tyrant Wyrm growled, I am Plakeet Pulakati of the mountain range of the setting Sunday. Linley, what do you want? This saint-level tyrant Wyrm, mountain range of the setting sun, was also an apex combatant. Linley smiled. Plakeet, I want to borrow some of your draconic blood. Growl, the eyes of the tyrant Wyrm, Plakeet, filled with a fiery rage, and the massive trees and boulders around him began to burn. Linley, are you trying to humiliate me, Plakeet? If you don't beat it, then prepare to receive my fiery rage. In mid-air, Linley could only shake his head and sigh helplessly. With a flip of his hand, he withdrew Blood Violet. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 27, A Heated Battle. Seeing Linley draw out Blood Violet, the tyrant Wyrm knew that Linley was going to go head-on against him. As a saint-level dragon, the tyrant Wyrm was naturally extremely arrogant. Bang! It angrily stomped the ground, causing the earth to shake and crack. The nearby trees all snapped apart and fell, and the tyrant Wyrm's hill-sized body shot directly into the air, breathing hellfire as its fiery red eyes stared at Linley. It didn't dare to be overconfident. Plakeet, you are so huge. I just want a little bit of draconic blood. Linley shook his head and sighed. You are trying to insult me, insult a mighty saint-level dragon. The tyrant Wyrm, Plakeet, suddenly opened his mouth and blasted out a scorching cloud of black draconic fire, which suddenly enveloped Linley, but Linley immediately dissipated. Plakeet suddenly stared upwards. Linley was right above him. Be careful. I'm going to start attacking you now. Linley seemed to be quite polite. HRMPH the tyrant Wyrm, Plakeet, felt even more insulted, and his massive body immediately rose at a terrifying pace. Boom! A sonic boom could be heard as the tyrant Wyrm sent its entire massive bulk against Linley. But hadn't he already noticed Linley's astonishing speed? What a sly tyrant Wyrm! Linley's body immediately transformed into a wind shadow, appearing somewhere else. A black shadow sliced through the air, striking through Linley. It was the tyrant Wyrm's draconic tail. Boom! The speed of the tyrant Wyrm's tail caused the air itself to form enormous wind blades which flew in the same direction. The nearby trees and boulders were chopped into small pieces like tofu, and the nearby trees all collapsed. The speed of the draconic tail alone was enough to create such terrifyingly powerful wind blades. Then how powerful must the actual tail itself be? Must not take this draconic tail head-on. Linley's face grew serious. Whoosh! Linley's speed suddenly reached its limit, turning into nothing more than a tiny gust of wind. Linley's current level of control over the wind was now far more terrifying than it had been 12 years ago. The tyrant Wyrm's entire body was emitting a scorching, infernal heat, and the air around instantly began to rise to a terrifyingly high temperature. If Linley was going to attack, he would have to enter this realm of infernal heat. Linley's body was covered with that azurish black wave of energy. Using the pulse guard defense, Linley charged straight into the black flames. Swish! Blood violet transformed into a streak of violet lightning. It seemed to have passed through reality itself as it reached a terrifying speed, causing space to grow distorted. The blurred space began to fold and distort, and the violet ray of light landed directly on the tyrant WYRM's body. Profound truths of the wind, spatial folding. Crunch. Blood violet chopped out a large wound that was 1 meter long and 30 centimeters deep. However, not a single drop of the tyrant WYRM's blood came out. This was because its scales were more than 30 centimeters thick. What strong defense! It wasn't broken through by my sword. Linley was startled. The power of his spatial folding attack was so great that it was only one step lower than Higginson's illusionary void sword. After all, Linley's understanding of the fast aspect was still lower than Higginson's. Higginson had trained for thousands of years, after all. If you have any balls, come fight me, Plakeet, head on. The tyrant WYRM roared angrily. He could clearly sense that Linley's speed was simply too fast, but just as he roared out these words and Linley was about to respond, dozens of black tentacles of infernal fire suddenly appeared out of nowhere from the tyrant WYRM's body and surrounded Linley. Tentacles. Linley was startled, while at the same time, he felt the tentacles surrounding him were as cold as ice. Linley didn't worry about his current situation at all. Instead, he began to wonder, these things are like octopus tentacles. How is it that a tyrant WYRM? Boss. These are the icy tentacles of the darkness-style spells. BB's voice rang out in Linley's mind. Linley now understood. The tyrant WYRM turned and stared at Linley with its flaming eyes. Linley, prepare to die. But before it even had a chance to attack, the deep azure layer of energy around Linley began to roil about and expand, and as it did so, those icy tentacles began to shudder. Bang! They exploded. The pulse guard defense now had 256 layers to it. It was more than 10 times as powerful as it had been in the past. But just as Linley exploded those icy tentacles, swish! That lightning-fast draconic tail slashed over once more. Linley's body instantly retreated at high speed, but it nonetheless grazed the edges of the pulse guard defense. The terrifying power transmitted by that draconic tail caused Linley's body to shake. There is nothing even remotely ordinary about the strength of tyrant WYRMS. Linley was secretly surprised. Experts on the level of Hate Sun probably couldn't do anything against this tyrant WYRM, given its power. Growl. The tyrant WYRM roared angrily, and its terrifying voice somehow seemed to be locked into a specific region and blasted against Linley. The terrifying sound caused Linley's ears to ring, and then, the tyrant WYRM wildly charged against Linley. There was only a distance of 100 meters between Linley and the tyrant WYRM, but as it charged at Linley, its size rapidly began to shrink. However, its charging attack power seemed to have become even more powerful. Growl. In the blink of an eye, it seemed like an earthquake or a mountain was charging at Linley. At the same time, a gray fog appeared out of nowhere, surrounding everything within several hundred meters, including Linley. Can't get hit. Linley didn't pay any attention to the fog at all, and he quickly began to dodge as fast as he could while blood violet began to dance in his hands as well. He just barely dodged the charging attack of the tyrant WYRM, and then Linley delivered yet another sword onto the tyrant WYRM's body. His sword was agile and mysterious. It fused both the spatial freezing concept and the spatial folding concept, two major yet opposite concepts, to form the tempos of the wind. The power of this attack was a level higher than even the illusionary void sword. Crunch. That thick scale instantly split apart. Growl. The tyrant WYRM let out an agonized, furious growl. Instantly, fresh blood began to spurt out from that meter-long wound. Seeing draconic blood spurt out, Sina, Sasha, and Taylor, watching from afar, all let out whoops of joy. A hint of a smile appeared on Delia's face as well. Clearly, Linley had the advantage. And in truth, Linley hadn't even gone into his dragon form. The tyrant WYRM was actually knocked flying towards the ground. Crash! An earthquake occurred as the tyrant WYRM's hill-sized body smashed into the ground. At the same time, it raised its head high and howled. Hool! A terrifying burst of sound exploded forth from the tyrant WYRM, transforming all the nearby trees to splinters. BB managed to react very quickly, instantly creating a black barrier around Delia and the children. "What are you doing? Showing off your loud voice." Linley flew down from mid-air. "I've already opened up a wound on your body. Just let me retrieve a little bit of fresh blood. Don't worry, I won't kill you. You are insulting me." The tyrant WYRM, placated, growled with the utmost anger. But Linley's face suddenly changed as he turned to stare into the horizon. Two enormous magical beasts were flying towards them at high speed. One of them had a perfectly sinuous body and a pair of enormous physical wings. It was one of the legendary saint-level gold dragons. As for the other dragon, its shape was roughly the same as the tyrant WYRM's, except its scales were a deep blue, and lightning crackled on the surface of its body. Saint-level gold dragon. Saint-level thunder lizard. Linley felt a bit numb. The tyrant WYRM was already very formidable. Even Linley, if he didn't dragon form, wouldn't dare to take the tyrant WYRM's draconic tail head on just by using his enhanced pulse guard defense. The weakness of the tyrant WYRM was its speed. But saint-level gold dragons were extremely fast, and thunder lizards were as fast as lightning. "Placated, what's wrong?" A deep voice came forth from the thunder lizard. "Is it this detestable human?" The tyrant WYRM growled, "It is, big brother. This detestable human is relying on his speed and reaction speed." The tyrant WYRM was furious. If it wasn't for the fact that he was slow, how would he be losing? Tyrant WYRMs were slow, but possessed terrifying defense and attack. They were similar to undying warriors. The thunder lizard stared at Linley with its two golden eyes. Saint-level thunder lizard. Saint-level gold dragon. Saint-level tyrant WYRM. These three dragons made up an extremely powerful force in the mountain range of the setting Sunday. Whenever they met a powerful foe, they would all help each other. When they combined forces, they were terrifying, especially when they compensated for each other's deficiencies. "Father!" The distant Taylor grew nervous. Sina and Sasha both watched the three saint-level dragons with concern as well. The tyrant WYRM flew into the air. Each of the enormous dragons were the size of a small mountain. The three saint-level dragons flew in the air side by side, blocking out the sunlight. Their terrifying suppressive aura alone was enough to make one's heart shudder. "If he's just fast, he's not worth us using our combination attack." A calm voice came out from the throat of the saint-level gold dragon. A hint of a smile was on Linley's face. This battle was becoming more and more amusing. Suddenly, swish! An enormous flash of lightning split the skies. The thunder lizard's enormous body suddenly appeared in front of Linley, and it reached out with its sharp claws at such speed that Linley couldn't dodge at all. It clawed viciously against Linley's body. Linley's pulse guard defense was actually reduced by more than half in power, and Linley's body was sent flying. Bang! The thunder lizard's eyes simultaneously shot out two bolts of lightning, striking against Linley's body. Linley's body slammed against the wall, then slid down. Bang! The ground shook from the collision and began to crack, while a huge gouge appeared in the ground. This speed is monstrously fast, almost as fast as BB. Linley, in the ground, was secretly startled. However, the thunder lizard's attack power is a good deal lower than the tyrant WYRM's. My pulse guard defense was almost broken through, but in the end, it still managed to take the hit. High speed, but somewhat weaker attack. After all, if a creature moved as fast as lightning but had an attack as powerful as the Tyrant Wyrm's, then it would be invincible. Is father fine? Sasha was nervous. He's fine. BB could clearly sense Linley's current condition. Laughing, he said, I bet the boss is actually really excited right now. Right now, the 3 saint-level dragons were circling in the air above, staring at the ground. Bam! Linley suddenly erupted from another spot in the ground, shooting out at high speed. But just as he shot out, a terrifying beam of light suddenly shot out towards Linley's head, carrying a terrifying amount of light-style energy. Linley's heart shuddered, and he immediately dodged, but as he did so, just as the light touched Linley's body, Linley felt a terrifying wave of force attack his soul. This was a very familiar sensation. When Linley had tested for magical aptitude, they had used this overall spell to test his spiritual energy's strength. But the overall spell, when used, was like a thin, snake-like ribbon of light. By contrast, the overall attack this gold dragon was using was a 10-meter thick beam of light. Light-style magic, overall. How can there be such a powerful overall spell? Haha, my turn. The Tyrant Wyrm, Plakeet, charged down, and its terrifying draconic tail slashed through the air like a whip against Linley. This sort of group attack was one which these 3 saint-level dragons had perfected. The gold dragon would use the spiritual intimidation spell to cause the enemy to feel woozy, and then the Tyrant Wyrm would deliver it a full-strength attack. Whoosh! As the enormous draconic tail swung down, space itself began to tremble, and a terrifying howling sound wave blasted the nearby trees into splinters. Harg! A furious roar emanated from the center of that gradually dissipating beam of light, and then the Tyrant Wyrm felt a terrifying force binding its draconic tail. The beam of light disappeared, and that saint-level thunder lizard, gold dragon, and the distant BB, Delia, Taylor, and the other kids all saw a terrifying sight. A human-shaped aberration, covered in deep azure scales, emerged. On top of its scales was a layer of azurish light that was constantly flowing around it. This was the dragon form of a dragon blood warrior who had reached the saint level. A peak stage dragon blood warrior. His arms were wrapped around the Tyrant Wyrm's tail. The mountain-sized Tyrant Wyrm roared madly, trying to struggle to pull free its draconic tail, but it couldn't budge Linley at all. This was the terrifying strength of a saint-level dragon blood warrior. Hey arg! With a powerful, explosive roar, Linley actually swung the draconic tail and sent the mountain-sized Tyrant Wyrm flying in an arced line before slamming heavily against the ground. Bam! The Tyrant Wyrm's body smashed heavily into the ground, which immediately cracked and shuddered, blasting countless boulders and trees apart as though they were made of tofu. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 28, Submission. Rumble. The earth broke apart with many cracks appearing, and sand and stone slowly rolled into those crevices. A mountain-sized indentation in the ground. The massive dragon shook its head twice, then stared at the terrifying creature which had stopped in midair. The dragon's fiery red eyes were filled with disbelief. A peak dragon blood warrior. Those dark golden eyes swept down towards the Tyrant Wyrm. Silence. The only sound that could be heard was that of the wind blowing, the leaves falling, and dust scattering. The Tyrant Wyrm, the thunder lizard, and the gold dragon had all been stunned by Linley's terrifying strength. Wow! Father's awesome! The distant Taylor was beginning to cheer, while Sina and Sasha were excited as well. In Delia's heart, she felt all the more proud of Linley. After all, this was her man. BB chortled and said, "These 3 saint-level dragons aren't bad. They forced the boss to use his dragon form." Linley's current dragon form was different from how it had been in the past. In the past, Linley's scales had been black, but now, they were a fusion between black and azure, creating a deep azure color. Although I drank the blood of the armored razorback WYRM in order to activate my dragon blood in my veins, it was still the dragon blood that truly caused my power to increase. Linley secretly mused. How could the energy in the draconic crystal of the armored razorback WYRM compare with the exalted lineage of the dragon blood warriors? A pure dragon blood warrior, when transformed, should have azure scales like Wharton did. Despite having drank dragon's blood, upon transforming after having reached the saint level, the scales would still trend towards azure. The massive body of the tyrant WYRM flew into the air, once more joining the thunder lizard and the gold dragon. These three dragons exchanged glances, then turned and looked seriously at Linley. They didn't have any of their earlier arrogance and boastfulness. Linley had a better sense for these three saint-level dragons as well. The tyrant WYRM's power and strength wasn't any weaker than that of peak dragon blood warrior. The reason why Linley had been able to so easily grab the opponent's tail wasn't just through his strength, he had also used his pulse guard defense to reduce the opponent's attack power. After transforming, the battle chi in Linley's body was far more powerful than it had been in the past. The pulse guard defense was naturally even more powerful after transforming as well. Using it to reduce the attack power of the tail before grabbing it allowed him to seemingly easily grab the tyrant WYRM's tail, then send it flying far away. As for the thunder lizard, Linley was certain that even after transforming, in terms of speed, he was still a level lower than the thunder lizard. But the opponent's attacks weren't very strong and thus weren't able to harm him. Naturally, the not very strong attacks was only in reference to someone with Linley's level of terrifying attack power. Gold dragons. This was a race of dragons that was extremely good at using magic. Linley was now certain of it. But what they had done just then was a simple exchange. He still wasn't too clear on the extent of it. Done chatting. Linley stood there in mid-air, his dark golden eyes staring at the three saint-level dragons. In a bright voice, he said, "The three of you, do you intend to fight me to the death, or just give me a little bit of draconic blood?" The three saint-level dragons had already come to a decision. Their leader, the thunder lizard, rumbled out, "Linley of the anarchic lands, your power has earned our respect. As long as you leave immediately, we can agree to not quibble about what just happened." Linley's lips quirked upwards. 12 years of quiet training had improved his temper quite a bit compared to the past. "It seems we will have to let our fists do the talking." Linley clenched his fists. And a wave of deep azure battle chi spread out around Linley, blasting wildly in every direction and causing the entire area to shake. Linley's dark golden eyes stared coldly at those three saint-level dragons. "Come. I haven't had a true, full-force fight in 12 years. Today, I'll have a good bit of fun with you." Linley's draconic tail swished, causing the air to shudder with each movement. The three saint-level dragons all stared at Linley. "That was just one of our simplest teamwork attacks. You had best not really believe you can beat all three of us." The thunder lizard rumbled. "Linley, I'll tell you clearly. The name of this technique is called lightning flashing, thunder booming." Clearly, this saint-level thunder lizard was totally confident. Linley stood there in midair like a demonic fiend, not concerned about the three saint-level dragons in front of him at all. Rumble. The thunder lizard's blue scales began to flash with lightning, and the air itself seemed to have become electrified as lightning snaked everywhere. At the center of it, the thunder lizard stared coldly at Linley, and then suddenly, a terrifying, enormous bolt of lightning struck towards Linley. No. It wasn't a bolt of lightning. It was the thunder lizard's body itself. Ha ha. Laughing loudly, Linley instantly transformed into countless shadows as he began to move at high speed. The space around Linley seemed to have frozen, while at other times, it seemed to have folded and distorted. The area around him was totally blurred. The dragon blood warrior, Linley, was constantly shifting about. Relying on his understanding of the elemental laws of the wind, he was actually able to dodge the thunder lizard's attack. The dragon passed by Linley, clearly not having hit him at all, but the lightning flashing in the thunder lizard's eyes became even more cold and sinister. Rumble, a clap of thunder could be heard. The thunderclap seemed to appear in Linley's area, as the thunder lizard's powerful draconic tail struck wildly and non-stop at Linley. The speed of the tail was far faster than the speed of the thunder lizard itself, and Linley didn't have time to dodge at all. Because of the back and forth motion of the attacking tail, the nearby space began to be distorted, creating multiple terrifying thunderous booms. The draconic tail attack was the real power of the lightning flashing, thunder booming attack. Linley's pulse guard defense retracted to the thickness of just 20 centimeters, but the power of the pulse guard defense didn't lessen at all. It was like an elastic membrane. Each time the draconic tail slashed towards him, the pulse guard defense was able to neutralize over half of the force. 1 or 2 hits, Linley didn't mind. But in the blink of an eye, that draconic tail had whipped him 1,000 times. This speed really is terrifying. Linley was truly speechless. He had never seen such frightening speed. A dragon's tail was also shockingly fast, and naturally, the tail of the speed-focused thunder lizard had reached an apex of speed. Is father all right? The distant Sasha was worried. Uncle Bibi, is Uncle Linley? Sina was a bit worried as well. They simply couldn't tell clearly what was going on in the battle in the distance. All they heard was constant, awe-inspiring thunderclaps and countless lightning bolts appearing in the area. Bibi grinned widely, revealing his white fangs. Beat it? Linley let out an angry growl. And then, with a clapping sound, the thunder lizard suddenly retreated at high speed, while at the same time, its draconic tail could no longer attack at high speed, because just then, Linley had landed a full-force punch against the thunder lizard's tail. The thunder lizard possessed powerful defense. An ordinary power punch wouldn't do anything to it, but Linley's punch included the profound truths of the earth. The cartilage and soft, flexible bones inside the draconic tail had been broken by the vibrations. The thunder lizard roared angrily, "Quick!" The 3 saint-level dragons moved in concert in a practiced manner. Gruel! An angry howl erupted from the gold dragon's mouth. The gold dragon had been collecting energy for a powerful attack this entire time. And now, a pure, thick white spear of light shot down towards Linley from up high. This pure white spear carried with it a terrifying amount of force, and even Linley's face changed slightly. Light style, forbidden magic, holy light lance. The power of a single target forbidden level spell was shockingly strong. Linley didn't have the chance to dodge at all. All he could do was watch as the light flashed, and as it did, the huge white spear of light slammed against his body, like a sharp spear slamming against a tough shield. But this spear was the light-style forbidden level spell, Holy Light Lance. And the shield was a peak dragon blood warrior who had the pulse guard defense. Boom! Linley's body was sent flying into the ground. The collision between him and the Holy Light Lance had caused invisible cracks in space in every direction, and wherever those cracks in space passed by, the nearby trees and boulders turned into powder. The cracks were like ripples in water. Even the earth itself rippled once. Careful! BB immediately used a powerful amount of darkness-style energy to easily stop this omnidirectional ripple attack. Even at such a distance, the ripple still possessed tremendous force, and within a radius of several kilometers, everything had been turned into dust. Not even a single leaf could be seen. Because the leaves had been turned to dust as well. Is he injured? The tyrant WYRM said quietly. That was a forbidden level spell. Even powerful saints shouldn't be able to take it head on. However, Plakeet, since he was able to grab onto your draconic tail, most likely his defense is very powerful. The gold dragon was somewhat uncertain and hesitating as he spoke. But even if it couldn't kill him, it should have badly injured him. Prepare the final attack. The Thunder Lizard said quietly. The Gold Dragon and the Tyrant Wyrm immediately began to prepare. Their ultimate attack was a single combination attack using the power of all three of these saint-level dragons. This combination attack was so strong that as far as they were concerned, there shouldn't be any expert beneath the deity level who was capable of blocking it. The Gold Dragon's massive mouth was mumbling, as though chanting the words to some sort of malediction. Draconic language spell. Bam! Linley shot out from the ground like an arrow with grace and speed. Not a single wound could be seen on him. The defense granted to him after transforming by his pulse guard defense and his draconic scales was terrifying indeed. Just then, the forbidden level spell had broken through his pulse guard defense. But the remainder of the power of the spell wasn't able to damage his scales at all. Suddenly, the world began to shake. An invisible ripple began to emanate from the Gold Dragon's body, then charged directly towards Linley. Linley instantly understood. In the past, Desri had used this exact technique to badly wound Lehman, the commander of the Zealot division, and knock him into the lake. The ultimate attack of the saint-level Gold Dragon, Soul Shout. The pulse guard defense around Linley's body just barely weakened the power of this invisible ripple, which charged directly against Linley's consciousness. Now, in the mysterious depths of his consciousness, a half-translucent, seven-colored crystal floated, surrounded by an endless, ocean-like amount of spiritual energy. This endless amount of spiritual energy slowly flowed about it like water, but with a strange rhythm that seemed to carry the mysteries of the profound truths of the earth within it. If one was able to carefully inspect it, one would find that the spiritual energy surrounding that seven-colored crystal had an extremely faint layer of azure light protecting it as well. Currently, that external burst of ripple-like spiritual energy was charging in wildly, with the target being Linley's soul. Bang! The Gold Dragon's most powerful attack collided with Linley's soul. When the Gold Dragon used this technique, the Tyrant Wyrm once more began to emit hellfire from its body, while at the same time, with a thundering sound, its muscles and bones began to crackle and pop as it gathered a tremendous amount of force. The Thunder Lizard was very confident. It was certain, that right now, Linley had already had his soul badly damaged. Even if he didn't die, he would be dizzy for a while. In this sort of situation, Linley wouldn't be able to control his defense at all. But just as the Tyrant Wyrm was preparing its most powerful attack. Swish! Linley, who logically shouldn't have been able to move at all, suddenly transformed into a blur and struck against the exhausted Gold Dragon. With just one mighty fist, he smashed the saint-level Gold Dragon out of the air and into the ground. The Tyrant Wyrm and Thunder Lizard stared at Linley in shock. Linley's dark gold eyes swept them with its icy gaze. His voice was calm. Stop resisting. Plakeet, I can tell that the power of the attack you are about to use is definitely ridiculously powerful. However, given your speed, there's no way you will be able to harm me at all. How could the Tyrant Wyrm not understand this logic? If he couldn't touch the opponent, what use was even the most powerful of attacks? They had thought that combining this attack with the Soul Shout would be perfect, but Linley wasn't affected by the Soul Shout at all. The three saint-level dragons couldn't believe what they had just seen. Linley was secretly laughing. Spiritual attacks? My ancestors in the Dragon Blood Warrior clan were able to reach the saint level in just a few decades. They didn't have a high level of understanding, and their spiritual energy wasn't very strong either. There are many people in the world capable of spiritual attacks. So why, then, was our Dragon Blood Warrior clan so famous? Why would they be proclaimed as the strongest of saints? The Dragon Blood Warriors were the supreme warriors who had been blessed by the heavens. Even Linley's ancestors, who had ordinary souls, no longer feared spiritual attacks upon reaching the saint level. This was because once they dragon formed at the saint level, their souls would be protected by a unique, strange energy possessed only by the dragon blood warrior lineage. This was what a dragon blood warrior was. The invincible dragon blood warriors. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 29, Glory. Seeing this godlike, invincible dragon blood warrior, the saint-level thunder lizard, gold dragon, and tyrant Wyrm all began to feel a hint of dread in their hearts. Right. Dread. Dread of Linley killing them. These three saint-level dragons already understood that the gold dragon who possessed the most powerful magic amongst them was unable to harm Linley, while the physically most powerful tyrant Wyrm wasn't able to match him in speed. As for the thunder lizard, someone like Linley with such ridiculous defense was his greatest bane. Will we die? The three saint-level dragons didn't know what to do. They didn't think that Linley would spare them, because at the beginning, Linley had been lenient with them, but then the three of them had used their ultimate attacks on him, trying to kill him. Just then, they truly had wanted to kill Linley. Would Linley spare them? The three saint-level dragons didn't think so. But just then, a calm voice rang out, which to the three of them sounded like music from the heavens. Choose death, or choose to serve as my mounts for 100 years. Linley's dark golden eyes stared at the three saint-level dragons. Perhaps because of his 12 years of quiet meditation, Linley was now rarely moved to engage in slaughter. The three saint-level dragons were unable to deal with Linley. But they would be effective against people of Asano's level. The saint-level thunder lizard, gold dragon, and tyrant Wyrm all secretly sighed in relief. Just 100 years. To these creatures with an unending lifespan, that was a fairly short time frame. In addition, as magical beasts, they respected the powerful. Linley had defeated the three of them by himself. Submitting to him wouldn't be considered a stain on their honor. Master. The three saint-level dragons lowered their proud heads towards Linley. From far away, the watching Delia, Taylor, Sina, and Sasha all came over, riding on Bibi's back. The kids were cheering happily. Even the mighty saint-level dragons, in the end, had lowered their heads to Linley, the one who the kids worshipped. Father, you are so powerful. Wow! 3 saint-level dragons. Taylor screamed in excitement. Sasha and Sina were normally calm, but upon seeing the 3 massive saint-level dragons, their eyes shone and they were extremely enthusiastic as well. Bibi sneered, "You 3 stupid worms, why'd you have to fight against my boss? You should have just admitted defeat from the start." HRMPH. The 3 saint-level dragons stared furiously at Bibi. Only now did Linley speak out. "This is my dear brother, Bibi. He is also a saint-level magical beast. However, his power is far higher than you 3's. Bibi's speed is almost on par with yours, Thunder Lizard. He isn't that far off. But his defense and attack are both greater than that of the tyrant Wyrms." These words utterly stunned the 3 saint-level dragons. Was there such a monster of a magical beast in the world? Speed almost on par with the Thunder Lizard, and power and defense even more terrifying than a tyrant Wyrm. How could this sort of magical beast exist? You are a rat-type magical beast. The saint-level Thunder Lizard said in a low voice, shocked as he stared at Bibi. They didn't doubt Linley's words in the slightest. An expert on Linley's level wouldn't lie to them. Bibi nodded. But, your fur is black. Not violet." The Thunder Lizard didn't dare believe it. In the Yulon continent, there's only one type of rat-type magical beast at the saint level, the legendary Emperor Rat of the Forest of Darkness. But the Emperor Rat's fur is a violet gold color. The place where the most stone-eater rats and shadow mice lived was the Forest of Darkness. Violet gold. Bibi suddenly understood. "Oh. You are talking about my friend. He is indeed an Emperor Rat. A black saint-level rat-type magical beast, this." The 3 saint-level dragons simply couldn't understand it. Bibi looked at Linley. "Boss, isn't it time to be getting back? Since they had the 3 saint-level dragons as steeds now, they could go back and have Sina, Taylor, and Sasha rouse the dragon blood in their veins. The tyrant Wyrm rumbled, "Master, aren't you going to cast the soul-binding technique? Only by using the soul-binding technique would one be able to effectively control a magical beast." Since these 3 dragons had admitted defeat, they were willing to accept the restrictions of the soul-binding technique. "No need," Linley said calmly. Soul-binding technique. Based on what Linley knew, a person was only capable of having 3 magical beasts. If he wanted to take over another one, he would then have to release one of his other master-servant relationships with another magical beast. Linley already had 2 magical beasts. He would at most be able to take another one. No need. The 3 saint-level dragons were shocked. 3 saint-level magical beasts were presenting themselves to him, but he didn't want them? "I trust you," Linley said calmly. The sensation of being trusted was quite a good one. "We 3 brothers have agreed to serve as mounts for 100 years. We definitely will honor our word." The 3 saint-level dragons felt a hint of admiration for Linley in their hearts. Seeing the 3 saint-level dragons being so obedient before him, Linley felt a hint of nostalgia. He still remembered when he was young, his father had led him to read the legends of his clan in the ancestral hall. Baruch, the very first dragon blood warrior of the Yulan continent. In the year 4560 of the Yulan calendar, outside the walls of the city of Linley, Baruch did battle against a black dragon and a titanic frost Wyrm. In the end, he slew both the titanic frost Wyrm and the black dragon, causing his fame to be spread across the world. In the year 4579 of the Yulan calendar, along the coastline of the northern sea of the continent, Baruch did battle against a 9-headed serpent emperor. On that day, the waves crashed unceasingly and nearby cities crumbled, but after a vicious fight lasting a full day and night, Baruch finally executed the 9-headed serpent emperor. In the end, Baruch founded the Baruch clan, and became the first leader of the Baruch clan. Ryan Baruch, the second dragon blood warrior of the Yulan continent. In the year 4690 of the Yulan calendar, in the mountain range of magical beasts, he defeated and subdued a saint-level golden dragon, and became known as the Golden Dragon Rider Saint. In the year 4697, Hazard Baruch, the third dragon blood warrior of the Yulan continent. Born in the year 5360 of the Yulan calendar, in his very first battle, he fought fiercely with a saint-level bloody-eyed maned lion in the mountain range of the setting sun. He defeated the lion, forcing it to scurry away and flee, causing Hazard to become famous throughout the world. Linley still remembered how his father had looked. That look of arrogance and pride. Pride in his ancestors. Pride in being a descendant of the Dragon Blood Warrior clan. However, his entire life, his father had one regret. He had always dreamed of reclaiming his clan's ancestral heirloom. Dreamed, that one day, he would witness the rebirth of his clan's glory. "Father, can you see this?" Linley murmured in his heart. "I, Linley Baruch, Yulan calendar year 10,022, went by myself to the mountain range of the setting sun and fought against 3 saint-level dragons and then tamed them." This record alone surpassed the achievements of his ancestors. Linley could name himself the most powerful dragon blood warrior in his clan's history without any shame. If only father could see this. His father had desired his entire life to restore the clan's glory. When Linley had become an Ernst Institute student, his father had entrusted him with the important tasks of recovering the clan's ancestral heirloom as well as restoring the clan's glory. And today, Linley had done it all. But his father was gone forever. "Let's go. Time to return. The 3 of you need to shrink a bit." Linley sighed, then issued the orders. Instantly, the 3 saint-level dragons shrank in size to roughly 10 meters or so, the same size as BB. With the 3 dragons in tow, Linley's group began to fly at high speed north, towards the anarchic lands. The anarchic lands. Outside Baruch City. Atop MT Black Raven. Big brother, your actions really were amazing. Warden's face was covered in shock and joy. You brought 3 saint-level dragons here directly to have them serve as mounts for 100 years. In the future, our descendants won't need to go find saint-level dragons at all. Linley laughed. Indeed, when he had decided to have these 3 saint-level dragons serve as mounts for 100 years, aside from increasing the saint-level power on his side, part of it was indeed for the reason Warden stated. Big brother. Warden was extremely excited. I have the feeling that our Dragon Blood Warrior clan is about to reclaim our glory of thousands of years ago. Didn't you say to me that Hodan said in the past, our clan had dozens of Dragon Blood Warriors? Linley nodded. Right. Thousands of years ago, our Dragon Blood Warrior clan definitely used this same method to produce many Dragon Blood Warriors. Dozens of Dragon Blood Warriors in one place, the stories of the 4 Supreme Warrior clans being able to dominate the Yulan continent definitely weren't just tall tales. How splendid his clan had been. One could just imagine it. Unfortunately, the reproductive ability of our Dragon Blood Warrior clan is weak. Warden sighed. Indeed. Linley's grandfather had only a single son, Hog. Hog only had 2 children, Linley and Warden. It must be understood, in many clans, there would be 7 or 8 children in each household. But the Dragon Blood Warrior clan clearly was different. Linley and Delia, aside from their twins, hadn't been able to have a single additional child. The heavens have already been kind enough to us. If they also gave us many children, then nobody else would be able to survive in the Yulan continent. Linley laughed, and Warden laughed as well. Indeed, a person couldn't be too greedy. Linley instructed, Warden, let Sina and the other 2 kids prepare. Tomorrow, the dragon blood lineage in their veins will be roused. Rousing the dragon blood was a major event. The next day, Haru and Bibi both stayed obediently at MT Black Raven. The 3 saint-level dragons, knowing this was Linley's will, didn't object at all. To these 3 massive saint-level dragons, it was just a little bit of blood. It was nothing at all. The Tyrant Wyrm, Thunder Lizard, and Gold Dragon had all shrunk in size, and were looking at the 3 kids. Laughing, Linley looked at the 3 children. You all know that once you drink live dragon's blood and rouse the dragon blood in your veins, the type of blood you drank will have a major impact on your transformation. For example, in the past, I drank the blood of an armored razorback Wyrm, which is why my knees, forehead, and elbows all sprouted the razor spikes of the armored razorback Wyrm. And my speed was relatively fast as well. This, too, was thanks to the influence of the armored razorback Wyrm. Linley explained in detail. Think well on your choice. Taylor, Sasha, and Sina were all considering this question. The 3 of them could choose the same dragon, or they could choose different ones. For these 3 saint-level dragons to give all 3 children blood was very simple. Taylor, which one do you choose? Delia looked at her son. Taylor carefully looked at the 3 saint-level dragons, then focused his gaze on the tyrannical, indomitable Tyrant Wyrm. I choose the Tyrant Wyrm. He's so powerful. I like him. Taylor's words made the Tyrant Wyrm very happy. Indeed, I, Plakeet, am quite powerful. I choose the Gold Dragon. Sasha's clear voice rang out. The Gold Dragon is so beautiful. Those scales are so slick, they look just like gold. Beautiful. Linley and Delia exchanged glances. Their daughter had actually chosen the Gold Dragon for this reason? The Gold Dragon was relatively happy as well. In the past, he would have considered offering his blood as an insult, but now, his master was Linley. For his master's child to select him meant that they liked him. Dragons were proud creatures. They hated being inferior to others. The thunder lizard immediately looked at Sina. Sina's face was as graceful and calm as ever. With a chuckle, he said, "Then I choose the thunder lizard." Actually, no matter who they chose, the draconic blood would only have some impact at the beginning. The most important thing was still the dragon blood warrior lineage. "The three of you, put the draconic blood into those 3 small buckets." Linley pointed to the side at 3 buckets which were large enough to complete fill one's belly. To the dragons, however, these 3 buckets were nothing at all. The gold dragon very straightforwardly cracked and plucked off one of its scales. The gold dragon placed the scale above the wooden bucket, and a single drop of fresh blood, the size of a head, dripped down, instantly filling the bucket. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 30, Discovery. The buckets filled with dragon blood were placed in front of the 3 children, and with a flip of his hand, Linley retrieved a large quantity of blue heart grass from his ring. The jade-green leaves of the blue heart grass glimmered with that layer of faint blue light. Linley divided it into 3 parts, with each part having 5 clumps. "Listen up, the 3 of you." Linley looked at the 3 kids. Sina, Taylor, and Sasha all stood attentively in front of Linley, listening to their elders' instructions. Linley said, "In a while, drink as much dragon's blood as possible, until your stomach is totally full. But before doing so, you must eat this blue heart grass. Logically speaking, 3 clumps per person should be enough, but just to be safe, it's best if you each eat all 5. Eat grass." Sasha wrinkled her nose unhappily. To let a child eat blue heart grass, especially one who had been pampered all her life, would naturally result in some resistance. "Sis, when father was in his teens, he had to go all by himself to the mountain range of magical beasts to search for blue heart grass and drink the blood of the armored razorback Wyrm. Father is now placing dragon's blood in front of us. And you're afraid to drink it?" Taylor didn't have any concerns. He immediately grabbed the blue heart grass and began to eat it. With big gulps, he swallowed it all down. Seeing this, Linley couldn't help but reveal a hint of a smile on his face. Linley was quite satisfied with his son, Taylor. Although Taylor was rather playful, he was able to work hard and endure bitterness, and he trained hard as well. Taylor wasn't much weaker than the level Linley had been when Linley was 10. Sina smiled, then grabbed the blue heart grass and began to eat it as well. "Sasha, it's fine. The blue heart grass juice is actually quite cool and refreshing," Sina said enticingly. "Oh." Watched by her father, Sasha picked up the blue heart grass and began to chew it. As she chewed, her face turned bitter. "Big brother Sina, you tricked me. The juice is cool, but the leaves make my mouth go numb." Despite complaining, Sasha still ate it. Linley and Delia were laughing. Glug, glug. Taylor was the first to lift up that small pail of blood and began to pour it in his mouth. Taylor knew that the more dragon's blood he drank, the easier it would be to activate the dragon blood lineage in his veins, and so he drank it all with big gulps and no hesitation. Sina and Sasha raised up their pails and began to drink as well. Glug, glug. The 3 children drank dragon's blood at the same time. This sight caused Linley to sigh endlessly with emotion. The predecessors cut the firewood, and the successors will not fear the cold. Linley's hard work had made it possible for these descendants to not have to experience those life and death dangers. Ah! The first one to begin shouting in pain was Taylor. The pail in his hand toppled to the ground, and Taylor was in such pain that he collapsed to the ground as well, rolling around. His face instantly turned white, and beads of sweat began to pour down his face. Delia's face immediately changed. "It's fine," Linley reassured Delia. Delia knew that the first time a dragon blood warrior activated their dragon blood, they would involuntarily transform. This first transformation would be an extremely painful one. Linley had experienced this pain in the past as well. When the pain reached a certain level, one would pass out. And indeed, as black scales sprouted out of his body, Taylor fainted. Immediately afterwards, Sina and Sasha began to scream in agony as well. Both of them rolling around on the ground. Blue scales began to slowly emerge from Sina's body. The sensation of scales growing out of nowhere into his body was even more painful than being killed. If they can't even withstand such a little bit of pain, what can they possibly accomplish? Linley quietly watched. Shortly afterwards, Taylor and Sina had both fully transformed. As for Sasha, who had been the last to drink the dragon's blood, she finally began to transform as well. Taylor's draconic scales were black, as he had inherited the coloration of the tyrant Wyrm. Sina's scales were blue, as the thunder lizard was blue. As for Sasha, Linley, look. Delia seemed startled and frightened. Linley had noticed Sasha's transformation as well. With a rumbling noise, two golden, butterfly-thin wings began to sprout from Sasha's back. This was what she had inherited from the gold dragon, its two massive physical wings. But these faint gold wings made Sasha look like a celestial spirit. However, those golden scales which covered her entire face made Sasha look very mysterious, especially given that she had that draconic horn on her forehead and that draconic tail, which gave Sasha's dragon blood warrior form a domineering aura as well. After a long time, the three children woke up. After waking up, the three kids excitedly stared at themselves and their transformations. Whoa, sis, you have wings. Taylor stared at Sasha jealously. Sasha liked her wings as well. They were part of her, like her hands. The two wings fluttered slightly, and Sasha gracefully flew into the air, excitedly shouting, "I can fly, I can fly. I feel so powerful." Taylor excitedly punched at a nearby piece of rock, and that rock instantly split apart into tiny pieces. A 10-year-old child who was able to smash rocks into pieces? No ordinary person would be able to accomplish this. Sina was extremely excited as well. Whoosh! Moving like a flash, Sina's body left behind after images when he moved. He was extremely fast. Linley, Delia, Warden, and Nina all laughed as they watched this. How marvelous! The saint-level gold dragon sighed in praise. Dragon blood warriors truly are incredible. The three saint-level dragons all sighed in amazement at this scene. The legendary supreme warriors really were amazing. They could already foresee, in a few decades, these three children would be three dragon blood warrior saints. After the three children got tired from playing around. "Mother! Where's my clothes?" Sasha said to Delia. The transformation had badly damaged her clothes. Fortunately, Sasha's pants weren't damaged, they were just a little dirty. But her upper body clothes had been shattered by those two wings of hers. It was no big deal right now, in dragon form, but if she returned to her human form, wouldn't she be totally exposed? Delia began to laugh. Linley laughed as he said, "The three of you, listen up. In the future, focus on training in accordance with the secret Dragon Blood Manual. There is one thing, however, generally speaking, you are not to transform into your dragon forms. In addition, right now, you are weak enough that even in dragon form, your power won't amount to much." "Yes, father, uncle, dot." The three children assented. "Warden, I'll hand these three children to you to manage." Linley looked at his little brother. The three children should live in Baruch City. They were still young, after all. If they were to be made to live in a place like Mt. Black Raven, where almost no others were around, the children wouldn't be used to it, and their temperaments would be affected as well. "All right." Warden nodded. Taylor and the others went down the mountain. Two of the three dragons, out of curiosity, decided to go to the Baruch City Palace as well. But of course, they shrank in size first. Linley and Delia remained on Mt. Black Raven, living a life of quiet training. Most of Delia's time was spent with Linley. Naturally, she would also go to Baruch City to spend time with the kids. As for Linley, he might go for months or even half a year at a time without seeing the kids. Normally, he stayed on Mt. Black Raven and trained. The sky was dark. Mt. Black Raven. The stone room in the center of the lake. The inside of the room was carefully laid out, and Linley and Delia were holding each other on the bed. Linley, have you ever asked Bibi to go inquire what that black stone was that he gave us on our wedding day? I had Bibi go ask, but the Emperor Rat only said that it was something that was very good for training. Linley said. Delia began to laugh as well. Alas! I never thought my training as a magus would reach such a speed. My big brother is such a genius, and is being personally taught by the High Priest, and is now an Archmagus of the 9th rank. As for me, I wasn't as good as him, but I reached the rank of Archmagus of the 9th rank before he did. Every day, I feel like my spiritual energy is rising, even when I'm not training, my spiritual energy is slowly increasing. Even I'm scared by how fast I'm improving. Enough, don't overthink things. Whatever it was that Emperor Rat gave us, we'll find out soon enough. Alright, it's late. Let's go to sleep. While Linley was quietly training at Mt. Black Raven and constantly analyzing the elemental laws of the wind and the earth, in a short mountain 300 kilometers east of the Baruch Kingdom, two men were carefully inspecting the quality of the soil. All kingdoms and empires needed their own mineral resources to be self-sufficient. Before the Baruch Kingdom was unified, this region suffered from constant war and was under rapidly changing administrative controls. Today, you'd be in charge of the city, tomorrow, someone else might. Nobody had time or effort to find mineral deposits for mining. Even if they found them, they would probably be attacked by the neighboring groups and end up dying. Thus, no one ever went mining. But after the Baruch Kingdom was founded, they focused on scouting and searching for mineral resources. Those surveyors carefully inspected every inch of the territory within the Baruch Kingdom. In the past 20 years, they had indeed found quite a few metal mines, such as iron mines, copper mines, gold mines, silver mines, and whatnot. Only, the mines were all of different sizes. They even found some rather valuable mines, but the output of these mines was relatively low, such as the black iron mines and the mithril mines. Having their own mines meant the kingdom wouldn't need to acquire materials for forging weapons from other nations. Chief, the soil here seems rather unique. A golden-haired man as skinny as a monkey said in a low voice. The middle-aged man near him carefully inspected the soil as well, then immediately ordered, "Kaya, let's go down and do some digging. Let's dig a bit deeper and see what is there." "Yes, Chief." The young man immediately brought out the tools and began to dig alongside the chief. Although they weren't very strong, the young man was a warrior of the 3rd rank, while the chief was a warrior of the 5th. Digging, to them, was very simple. Their digging skills were quite practiced, and the deep hole quickly deepened without widening. Clank. A piercing sound. It seemed they had ground onto some sort of metal. "Chief, come take a look, quick," that young man hurriedly said. The middle-aged man immediately lowered his head to stare. Right now, it was the afternoon, and there was still quite a bit of sunlight. The middle-aged man could clearly see that something was reflecting the light of the setting sun, and he immediately used his hand to push away the nearby dirt and mud. A half-translucent gem appeared before his eyes. This is," the middle-aged man was speechless for a moment, then said in shock, "this is a Magicite gem." "A Magicite gem? Kaya, it's a Magicite gem." "What? Captain, we're rich. We're rich." The young man's eyes immediately shone with happiness. Magicite gems were extremely valuable. In truth, Magicite cores of magical beasts were very similar to Magicite gems. Although they were cores, they were a type of gem as well. For example, the cores of dragons were also often called draconic gems. But of course, natural magicite gems couldn't have the terrifyingly high amount of energy that draconic gems had. According to the normal market value, a low-quality magicite gem, 10 gold coins, equivalent to the magicite core of a magical beast of the 3rd rank. A middle-quality magicite gem, 100 gold coins, equivalent to a magicite core of the 4th or 5th ranks. A high-quality magicite gem, 1000 gold coins, equivalent to a magical beast core of the 6th rank. A top-quality magicite gem, 10,000 gold coins. Naturally, it couldn't match up to the magicite core of a magical beast of the 7th rank, which was worth around 50,000 gold coins. To find magicite gems or cores more valuable than top-quality magicite gems, one would have to go out and kill magical beasts of the 7th or 8th ranks, or even higher. It could be said that a magicite gemstone mine was more than 10 million times more valuable than ordinary gold mines. This was because when engaging in gold mining, one had to pan for gold, and it was extremely time-consuming. But magicite gemstone mines were different. They had large numbers of magicite gems clustered together. It was as though a large number of magicite cores had clustered together. In the Yulon continent, the only thing comparable in value to a magicite gemstone mine was a mithril mine. "We're going to be rich, chief. We can fill up a bag of gemstones, and they'd easily be worth over 100,000 gold coins. We're going to be rich." The young man was wildly overjoyed. The chief frowned. "Don't be hasty. This should be a magicite gemstone mine. Let's take a look and see how large this mine is." Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 31, Magicite Gemstone Mine. "Yes, chief." The young man suppressed his excitement, forcing himself to continue surveying the area with the chief. "Here as well." The chief's eyes lit up. "Chief, there's magicite gems here as well." 100 meters away, the young man, Kaya, was extremely excited. The older man surveyed his surroundings, and then immediately ran next to Kaya, so excited he was panting for breath. "Kaya, this clearly is a magicite gem mine. We've discovered that it is at least a few hundred meters wide. Such an enormous magicite mine is rarely seen in the entire Yulon continent." Kaya nodded repeatedly as well. Magicite gems. A single sack of them was more than 1,000 times the value of a sack of gold. This definitely was an enormous sum. Kaya looked at his chief, then scanned the surrounding area. Seeing no one else was here, he immediately lowered his voice and whispered, "Chief, we're both rich. We were able to find so many gems in the area around us. The price of the gems in this area alone has to be worth several 100 million gold coins, or maybe even more." The chief surveyor was also a surveying expert. Naturally he could tell how much this location was worth. "Kaya, what are you trying to say?" The chief could already see the greedy look appear in Kaya's eyes. Kaya suppressed his excitement and hurriedly said, "Chief, think about it, what's our yearly surveying salary? Now, as long as we keep quiet about it and don't tell anyone, we can secretly excavate a bag full of gems, then sell them. Then we'd be rich. It would be possible for us to become two of the richest people in the entire Yulon continent because of this mine." The more he thought about it, the more excited Kaya became. There was nothing that could be done. Magicite gems were a hot commodity, and there were many channels for it to be sold through. In addition, even the lowest of magicite gems were worth 10 gold coins. One could imagine how valuable this mine was. "Kaya, calm down. Even if you have money, you have to be alive to spend it." Just as Kaya was getting so heated up that it seemed to be summer, his chief poured a bucket of verbal ice water over him. Kaya shivered, then looked at his chief. "Chief, what do you mean?" The chief said seriously, "You should know how tightly we surveyors are managed and overseen. Those senior people are always worried that we will find some valuable mines, then secretly steal from them. The kingdom is extremely strict in its oversight of us. Kaya sneered and laughed. Chief, what are you afraid of? Yes, there is oversight, but all we need to do is to make one trip then leave and never return. You are still too young. The chief berated him. You should know that every day, there are records in the headquarters of the areas we have excavated. If we disappear, they would definitely come investigate this area. By then, they would definitely discover the Magi site gem mine. And secondly, the chief looked at Kaya solemnly. The kingdom has quite a few experts. Once the kingdom discovers what we have done, they would definitely pursue us. Our families would most likely get caught in the mix as well. Kaya suddenly remembered that back in Baruch City, his chief had a very good family. But he, Kaya, was different. His parents had passed away a long time ago in the chaotic wars. He was all by himself, and hadn't yet married. He had nothing tying him down. Kaya was very confident that he could take away an enormous fortune, and live a life of luxury. Kaya. The chief looked at him. If we report this to the headquarters will reward us for discovering the mine. How much would the reward be? Kaya scoffed. 10,000 gold coins would be the most we could expect from them. Actually, 10,000 gold coins was an enormous sum already. An ordinary family only used a few dozen gold coins a year. 10,000 gold coins was enough to allow an ordinary family to live off of for 100 years. But to enjoy the life of a magnate, 10,000 gold coins truly was nothing. Hard to say. It depends on the size of this mine. If the Magi site gem mine is fairly large, they might give us several tens of thousands of gold coins, or even 100,000 gold coins. The chief tried to persuade him. Kaya, the gold that the kingdom gives us, we can spend without fear, and we don't have to be forced to leave our home. Kaya looked at the Magi site gems in the hole beneath them, then looked at his chief. After struggling a long time mentally, he slowly nodded. A hint of a smile appeared on the chief's face. The chief thought of his wife and his 3 kids. He truly didn't want to make the kids go fleeing with him. But just at this moment, a sharp dagger suddenly thrust out at the chief. Kaya's eyes were filled with a hint of madness. Die! But as his dagger stabbed at the chief, Kaya suddenly found that he could no longer push the dagger forward. Because the chief had seized him by the hand. Kaya's face instantly changed. The chief stared at him coldly. And then, he exerted some pressure with his hand. Crack! Kaya's hand and wrist was shattered. Kaya howled wildly, while at the same time attacking the chief with his left hand. Sadly, he was a warrior of the 3rd rank, while the chief was of the 5th. The difference was too great. Bang! The chief, with a simple punch, hit Kaya in the chest. A bone-splintering sound was heard while Kaya went flying backwards, slamming against the floor. Kaya's chest was caved in and blood was flowing from his mouth. Kaya's life was fading from his body. He truly couldn't accept it, he had ambushed the chief at such a close range. Clearly, the chief had been ready for him. The chief sighed as he looked at Kaya. Kaya, if I was 20 years younger and didn't have anything holding me back, perhaps I would have made the same choice as you, to abscond with a large amount of treasure and leave and become a magnate. Thus, I understand how you are feeling. The chief had guessed that Kaya would ambush him, and thus had been on high guard, and the battle chi in his body had been activated as well. Kaya listened to these words, and then his eyes turned dim. He had no life left in him. The chief sighed and shook his head as he looked at Kaya's body. But he didn't mind too much. When he was young, the Baruch kingdom hadn't yet been founded. He had killed quite a few people, and he was rather used to it. For the sake of letting oneself live a good life, far too many people had lost their lives. The chief immediately covered up the hole with dirt, then turned and left at high speed to the nearby Nafeng city. The news that the Baruch Kingdom's small city of Nefeng had discovered a magicite gem mine quickly spread throughout the kingdom. The area around the mine had been immediately sealed off by thousands of soldiers, forbidding anyone from going near it. They quietly awaited orders from the capital. Mt. Black Raven. Warden was running at high speed through the mountain. He passed through the thick woods, then followed the creek to the place where Linley was training. "Big brother!" Warden called out from afar. Linley, who was meditating in the center of the lake, couldn't help but open his eyes. Seeing Warden, a hint of a smile appeared on his face. "Warden, what has you here in such a rush?" "Big brother, make a trip with me," Warden hurriedly said. "Little Warden, what's going on?" Bibi popped out of a nearby wooded area. Warden explained, "Big brother, in the eastern borders, our people have discovered a large magicite gemstone mine. Right now, the scope of the deposit is at least 1,000 meters wide. And that's just the surface layer. Exactly how large it is, hard to say. But even if it's just 1,000 meters wide, the value of it is definitely several billion gold coins." "Oh!" Linley was shocked. "There's such a large magicite gem deposit." Magicite gemstones weren't like iron or copper deposits. Magicite gemstones usually formed only after countless years of accumulating elemental energy. They would constantly compress it, and then finally take form. Some magicite gemstone deposits were only a few dozen meters in diameter. "Let's go, big brother," Warden said repeatedly. "All right, let's go together." As soon as Linley spoke, Bibi chimed in. "I'm going too." Warden immediately laughed. "Bibi, if you go, I won't have to dragon form." Warden, being at the 9th rank, still couldn't fly unless dragon formed. But dragon forming would ruin his clothes. "Fine." Bibi agreed easily. Bibi's body immediately grew larger. Warden mounted on his back, and then the three of them flew at high speed towards the east. The current flying speed of Linley and Bibi was so great that in the amount of time it took to drink a cup of tea, they traversed the 300+ kilometers. Below, Warden pointed at the large area protected by a heavy guard. Linley nodded slightly, and the three of them immediately descended. Seeing people fly over, the soldiers didn't dare to be too rash. Their leader ran over. Sadly, this senior captain had never seen Warden before. "Are you, Lord Linley?" Seeing Bibi shrink then hop onto Linley's shoulders, many soldiers let out surprised shouts. This black saint-level mouse had virtually become Linley's insignia. He was a legendary figure in the Baruch Kingdom, its spiritual support. Linley's influence was tremendous. "Right. I am Linley. This is Warden, your king." Linley laughed calmly. Warden resignedly stretched out his arms, which immediately became covered with azure scales. This was more convincing than any verbal proof. Dragon blood warrior transformation, only the descendants of the Baruch clan could do this. "Your Royal Majesty." "Lord Linley." Loud voices rang out. Warden said calmly, "Enough. Keep guarding. My brother and I are going to scan this area." "Yes." The surrounding soldiers raised their heads and their chests, keeping their backs straight. All of them wanted to make a good impression in front of their king and in front of this legendary saint, Linley. Linley, meanwhile, had already begun to spiritually scan this area. The nearby warden just looked at Linley. How huge! Linley was stunned as he delved deep into the ground with his spiritual sense. Spiritual energy could easily pierce through material barriers, but material barriers would still lessen the range of the spiritual energy much more than air did. After all, in the air, spiritual energy could scan at a range of 10 kilometers. But scanning solid, material barriers lowered that range to 1 kilometer. "Big brother, what is it?" Warden said softly. Linley cracked a smile. "It seems, I need to take this a bit more seriously." Wharton was astonished. He instantly understood Linley's meaning. This Magi-site gemstone mine was so vast that Linley's casual spiritual energy scan wasn't able to totally investigate the size and scope of this deposit. Big Brother's spiritual energy is capable of covering a very wide area, even through the ground. How large is this deposit exactly? Wharton's heart began to shake. Linley was now using his spiritual energy to scan at full strength. A full-strength scan was very taxing on spiritual energy. Thus, unless there was some special reason, experts rarely would use spiritual energy on such a scale. Finally, Linley finished the investigation of this terrifying Magi-site gemstone deposit. How frightening! What a terrifyingly large Magi-site gem deposit! Linley had clearly discovered, this Magi-site gem deposit was an oval, round shape. But of course, in the area around the oval, there were still some scattered, random deposits. One of the nearby deposits was fairly close to the ground, perhaps just 3 or 4 meters away from the ground. This massive deposit was over 20 kilometers wide. Even someone who had trained to Linley's level of understanding couldn't help but feel his heart rate quicken. Linley secretly let out a breath, then looked at Wharton. Wharton asked softly, "Big Brother, how is it?" Linley immediately walked to the side. "Talk about it over here." Wharton and Linley came to a quiet, secluded place. "Big Brother, how big is it?" Wharton was somewhat frantic. Linley said seriously, "Very big, larger than any Magi-site gem deposit previously discovered in the Yulon continent. At least 10 times bigger." Wharton was shocked. After all, in the past there had been deposits that were 1 or 2 kilometers in size. To be 10 times larger than those deposits. This Magi-site gem deposit is at least 20 kilometers in length. In addition, it's very deep as well. Based on my calculations, this Magi-site gem deposit should definitely be worth at least several hundred billion gold coins. Linley felt his heart tremble as he just thought about this number. Several hundred billion gold coins. Good heavens! Wharton found it hard to breathe as well. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 32, Joining Forces. The largest Magi-site mine in the history of the Yulon continent was actually discovered by the Baruch kingdom, which had only been erected for 12 years. The anarchic lands have been an area of constant warfare and battle. In thousands of years, not a single power has had the chance to do some excavating and mining. I didn't expect that in this area that I unified, we would immediately find such a large mine. Linley couldn't help but sigh with amazement. But at the same time, Linley felt rather curious. Magi-site deposits were formed from a large amount of elemental essence that was slowly compressed to the point of taking solid gemstone form. To create such a huge Magi-site mine would require an enormous amount of natural elemental essence. Why was it that there would be so much natural elemental essence here? But when Linley had scanned the area with his spiritual energy, he hadn't found anything unique about the ground below. Not good. Wharton's face changed. What is it? Linley looked at Wharton in surprise, and BB did the same as well. Little Wharton, we just found such a huge Magi-site mine. Why do you say? Not good. Wharton shook his head. In a serious voice, he said, "Big Brother, you say this Magi-site mine is worth hundreds of billions of gold coins. Aside from the financial aspect, the most important aspect of Magi-site mines is, they can be used in warfare. You should know this, right?" Linley nodded. "You are talking about Magi-site cannons?" Linley asked. Magi-site cannons were created from a sort of alchemy and metal smithing. They allowed the usage of magic on a wide scale without requiring top-tier archmagi. In the past, the holy capital of Fenley City had Magi-site cannons, but alas, on Apocalypse Day, even saint-level magical beasts had descended, as well as a large number of flying beasts. This made it so that there was no time for the Magi-site cannons to begin firing. In truth, Magi sight cannons were a type of extremely effective attack in warfare. For example, some top-quality Magi sight cannons could consume a large amount of Magi sight gems and, with each blast, unleash power equivalent to a spell of the 7th or 8th rank, easily killing hundreds of people. On the battlefield, if one could emplace 10 large Magi sight cannons and release a few blasts, the enemy forces could instantly be reduced by 10,000 soldiers. This would have a huge impact on the outcome of the battle. But Magi sight cannons were a bottomless, money-sucking pit. The amount of Magi sight gems they consumed was simply terrifying. In the past, when the Baruch kingdom had unified this area, the enemies didn't use any Magi sight cannons, because an impoverished area like this simply couldn't afford to use them. With each blast from the Magi sight cannons, Magi sight gems would be consumed. And these things were more valuable than gold. A small amount of Magi sight gems can be purchased by gold. Warden's face was solemn. But a large amount would be restricted and monitored by the empires. They wouldn't permit any outsiders to purchase them. Although some people engage in smuggling, how much can that amount to? Linley nodded. How could a nation allow an enemy nation to purchase military supplies from them in large scale? Warden said seriously, it is easy to buy Magi sight cannons, and are in truth, given our kingdom's strength, if we spend some money, we can make our own. With such a Magi sight mine combined with Magi sight cannons, our military power would become truly astonishing. There were still very few Magi, after all. The testing procedure Linley had gone through in the past was testament to that. After becoming a magus, to reach the 7th rank or even higher, that was even less likely. In the continent, only the great empires, the Holy Union, and the Dark Alliance were capable of forming entire Magi Corps. Linley's Baruch kingdom didn't have the ability to set up this sort of corps either. But Magi sight cannons, 10 large Magi sight cannons, if one had enough Magi sight gems, wouldn't be one whit inferior to a Magi Corps. Big brother. Warden looked at Linley. You should know that in the continent, the 4 empires and the other kingdoms, in their struggles, will not use saints unless it becomes a life or death war. If saints do not get involved, then Magi sight cannons will have the ability to change the course of a battle. If the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows discovers that we now have the largest Magi sight mine in the entire Yulon continent, then... Linley's expression turned grave as well. His long time spent training had caused him to forget about worldly battles. You are right. Once the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows finds out, they might even join forces to attack our kingdom. Linley sensed the threat as well now. In the past, they had agreed that in normal battles, saints were not permitted to get involved. Then, how could the Baruch kingdom, with a population of just 100 million, possibly outfight the combined forces of the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows, which controlled a far greater population? The two sides dominated a larger territory than Linley as well, and those were richer areas with higher populations. The total population which the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows controlled was definitely in the 400 to 500 million range. Big brother, what should we do? Warden looked at Linley. Linley's eyes shone with a cold light. No need to overthink it. Right now, we need to come up with ways to buy Magi sight cannons. I'll have the Dawson conglomerate help out. And then, we need to, in strict confidence, begin mining. If the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows truly comes, then we'll rely on Magi sight cannons to support our smaller army. All right, big brother. Warden's eyes lit up as well. Linley had already made the decision that no matter what, they could not hide or cower. Soon, a large number of people were dispatched to this area to begin mining Magi sight. At the same time, a large number of soldiers remained on guard here. When mining, the miners were not permitted to engage in any outside activities. Naturally, their salaries were extremely high as well. To outsiders, all they announced was that they had discovered a fairly valuable mineral deposit. The Baruch Kingdom's code of silence was quite effective. A full month went past without this information being leaked. However, the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows had quite a few spies planted in the Baruch Kingdom. Occasionally, some news would leak out. In the end, the Radiant Church found out the truth of the news from the family members of the miners. Within a graceful, noble manner. The largest Magi site mine in the Yulon continent. At least 10 kilometers in size. A silver-haired youth was reading the letter in his hands. His expression immediately changed, and the more he read, the more serious his face became. This silver-haired youth seemed to be quite young, but in reality, not even Haydns and Asano were older than him. This was because, he was a saint-level angel of the Radiant Church. 3,000 years ago, he had descended to the Yulon continent. Although his power as an angel had not increased, and his potential couldn't compare to humans, the long time he had spent here resulted in his intelligence and wisdom being as high as any human's. Arfan A. Fang, a four-winged angel, the current leader of the Radiant Church's forces in the anarchic lands. Good news. Arfan's face revealed a hint of a smile, then he immediately instructed the person who had delivered the message, immediately go and leak this news to the Cult of Shadows. See what their response is. Yes, my lord. The middle-aged man said respectfully. Arfan nodded slightly. If the Cult of Shadows was interested in attacking the Baruch Kingdom, that would naturally be a wonderful affair. Even if they didn't attack, informing them wouldn't be of detriment to the Radiant Church. Deliver this news to the Sacred Isle immediately. Let the Sacred Isle give us orders as to what we should do next. Arfan ordered. He knew, the decision on such an important matter in the anarchic lands had to come from the Sacred Isle. Soon. The order from the Sacred Isle arrived. Arfan read the missive. It was exactly as he had anticipated. Join forces with the Cult of Shadows and attack the Baruch Kingdom. We have to get at least a third of the Magi site mine's output. That's our bottom line. The order was very simple. After all, many things didn't have to be said openly. As the manager for this area, Arfan naturally was no fool. For example, he would do his best to let the Cult of Shadows expend more energy and power. Arfan smiled. He thought to himself, it seems that it is time to reply to the Cult of Shadows. A while ago, when he had sent someone to leak this news to the Cult of Shadows, the Cult of Shadows had responded quite quickly. They had immediately invited Arfan to go and discuss this matter. Arfan hadn't immediately answered them, instead asking them to wait. And now, he had the Sacred Isle's orders. Everything could begin now. An ordinary, unremarkable little city. An ordinary little courtyard. The saint-level four-winged angel, Arfan, and the senior judge of the Cult of Shadows, Chi Xi. The two were seated opposite from each other, drinking wine. Not bad. The taste and the texture are exquisite. It should be from the Yulon Empire's Blueflow winery, right? Chi Xi laughed. Mr. Chi Xi truly knows his wine. Arfan laughed calmly. Let's not beat around the bush. Today, you have invited me here, Mr. Chi Xi, to discuss the issue of the Baruch Kingdom's Magi site mine. What do you wish to say, Mr. Chi Xi? Chi Xi winked at Arfan, then took a sip of wine in satisfaction. Mr. Arfan, would you mind if I took some of this wine with me when I leave? I think I have fallen for it. Arfan frowned. He felt a hint of frustration. But since this was a negotiation, he had to endure it. Mr. Chi Xi, could it be that you wish to discuss wine with me until nightfall? Arfan said seriously. Chi Xi looked at Arfan and began to laugh loudly. Mr. Arfan, I was just jesting with you. Right. The Cult of Shadows does indeed have some thoughts regarding the Baruch Kingdom's Magi site mine. However, we don't wish to engage in warfare against the Baruch Kingdom. You don't. Arfan looked carefully at Chi Xi. What was this Chi Xi planning? He didn't want to engage in battle with the Baruch kingdom. Then what was the point of this meeting? Mr. O'Casey, what do you mean? Arfan's face sank. O'Casey smiled. Actually, Arfan, you should understand. All we have to do is send some people to the Baruch kingdom and say, the Radiant Church is preparing to attack the Baruch kingdom, and has invited the cult of shadows to come along with them. As long as the Baruch kingdom is willing to give up some of the gems, then the cult of shadows is prepared to stay out of the game and help neither side. If you are willing to give up a bit more, we can even help you deal with the Radiant Church. O'Casey looked at Arfan, who now had an ugly expression on his face. Arfan, tell me. What would Linley and Warden choose? Arfan was silent. The enmity which Linley has with the Radiant Church isn't a small one. O'Casey said freely. Indeed. O'Casey's words were correct. Linley's side probably truly would be willing to give some Magi-site gems to the cult of shadows, or perhaps even a large amount to have the cult of shadows help them deal with the Radiant Church together. The Radiant Church and the cult of shadows were opposed to each other, after all. Arfan knew that right now, the situation was very unfavorable for them. Mr. O'Casey. Arfan looked seriously at O'Casey. Do you know how much that Magi-site mine truly contains? I don't know, but it should be several times larger than the former top Magi-site mine. O'Casey said. Very few people knew the exact size of the mine. After all, it hadn't been fully excavated yet. Only someone like Linley who could scan the area with his spiritual energy could clearly understand the size of it. But how would the Radiant Church and the cult of shadows dare to send a saint-level expert and risk irritating Linley? Perhaps Linley would immediately kill that saint. After all, in their previous agreement, they only said that saints could not participate in battles. But Linley was still permitted to kill other saints. Arfan nodded. Since you don't know the size of the Magi-site mines, then even if Linley gives your cult of shadows a seemingly large quantity of Magi-site gems, you won't actually know what percentage of the total mine it is. True. O'Casey admitted to it. Linley might only declare the size of the mine as being a fraction and worth only a few 100 billion gold coins, with the actual mine being 10 times larger. After all, no one knew exactly how large it was. It would be easy for Linley to lie to them. As long as we join forces against the Baruch kingdom, later on, we'll split the Magi-site mine 50-50, no matter how large it is. Arfan said. Half. O'Casey shook his head. 70-30. A 70, you 30. Arfan said coldly. O'Casey, don't go too far. If we split it in half, we'll be able to work and coordinate better in the future. O'Casey winked at him, then laughed. Since that's the case, then I'll go help Linley's side. We won't have to risk a thing, and we'll get a large amount of Magi-site gems. Arfan frowned. 60 for you. 40 for us. One word, yes, or no. Arfan's face was very grave. O'Casey looked at Arfan, then raised his wine glass. Smiling, he said, Mr. Arfan, come. Let us toast our joining forces. Arfan's face revealed a smile. Cheers. He raised his wine glass as well. The Radiant Church and the cult of shadows, for the sake of the enormous riches within that Magi-site mine, had joined forces. This was proof that there was no such thing as eternal allies or perpetual enemies, only eternal and perpetual interests. And these interests could sometimes be money, sometimes be power, and sometimes be affection. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 33, Calling the Troops, Summoning the Generals. The Anarchic Lands. The Radiant Church's territory. On a public road, an endless army procession was moving forwards, with military officers riding on magical beasts or powerful stallions barking at the soldiers in that massive, endless line. Move faster. Brandishing their whips in the air, the military officers had very strict expressions on their faces. A forced march. They remembered the order they had been given. They had to hurry towards the prefectural city of Sherry as quickly as possible. Outside the boundaries of the prefectural city of Sherry was the location where the Baruch Kingdom and the Radiant Church were going to do battle. This was also the place closest to the Magi site mines that the Radiant Church had access to. The mobilization of this grand army couldn't be hidden from the Baruch Kingdom. Naturally, they had to move quickly. Right now, at the boundaries of Sherry, 20,000 soldiers had already assembled. These hastily assembled soldiers were permitted a day or two of rest after hurrying over here, and then they would also be sent to do battle. We're going to fight a full-on war against the Baruch Kingdom. Within a quiet, secluded manner, Cardinal Guillermo was staring at the northern skies. The person responsible for this battle wasn't Arfan. It was Guillermo. After all, in terms of influence amongst the masses, Cardinal Guillermo had more. And saints were not permitted to get involved in this battle. Arfan would be useless, but Guillermo, as an archmagus of the 9th rank, would be able to make a major impact. What a true pity. The young man who could have become of great use to the Radiant Church has become our greatest foe. Guillermo sighed in his heart. He had personally watched Linley grow up, and grow from being a genius magus of the 7th rank to an expert who could kill Clady, a warrior of the 9th rank. After being dormant for many years, he killed 6 angels of the 9th rank, and then became an earth-shaking figure in the O'Brien Empire. And then, he founded the Baruch Kingdom in the anarchic lands. 20 years have passed. This Linley is now so powerful that even the Praetor and the others are remaining in hiding in the Sacred Isle, afraid to come out. Guillermo mused to himself. "Milord." A knight saluted him respectfully, calling out his name in a reminding manner. Guillermo awoke from his musings. Glancing at the knight, he said, "Let's go. Come with me to the border with the prefectural city of Sherry. Let's go see the Dark Cardinal of the Cult of Shadows, and see if Dark Cardinal Weisporter Wasi Bote has improved over the past few decades." The royal capital, Baruch City. The royal palace. Warden, Linley, Barker, and the others were standing in a line in the main hall. There was a giant army map in the middle of the hall, and a middle-aged man was currently aiming a pointer on top of it. "Milords, the Magi site mine is here. If it is just the Radiant Church that attacks us, the place we should choose to fight at is the prefectural city of Sherry." Linley and the others all nodded. However, the middle-aged man shook his head. "Unless the Radiant Church's commander has gone stupid, they won't choose to attack here." "Oh." Barker raised an eyebrow. The middle-aged man continued, "The Magi site mine is over 300 kilometers away from the capital, while the prefectural city of Sherry is 400 or 500 kilometers away from the capital. This is a straight line. If they had to fight their way from the prefectural city of Sherry to the Magi site mine, they would have to travel nearly 1,000 kilometers if they followed the road. On the road to the mines, there are over 10 cities, large and small. The Radiant Church would battle us for 1,000 kilometers, deep within our territory. Nearly half their forces have to remain in their garrisons with their borders with the O'Brien Empire and the Rohald Empire. Only half are available to attack us. Therefore, our military strength is roughly on par. The middle-aged man pointed at Sherry. At the same level of power, if we are to guard inside our city walls while they attack, and they are forced to fight through our territory for 1,000 kilometers, they would be asking for death. Therefore, if the Radiant Church wishes to attack us, they only have one option. Join forces with the Cult of Shadows. They have no other options. The middle-aged man took a deep breath, the pointer in his hand slashing to the side. The Cult of Shadows shares a border of over 1,000 kilometers with us. The closest place to our Magi site mine, without question, is right here. The prefectural city of Kodkata. The middle-aged man pointed at a spot. The Magi site mine is outside the small city of Nefeng. Nifeng City is one of the small cities under the control of the prefectural city of Cod. From Cod to the mines is a distance of only 100 kilometers. The middle-aged man had a serious look on his face. If they break through our defenses here, it would be smooth sailing for them to charge to the Magi site mines. Linley nodded slightly. This general explained things very clearly. What's WACI? Wharton suddenly said. If I were to give you full authority to direct the battle as you please, would you be confident in your ability to win? Barker also said, in addition, I can also provide you with over 30 Magi site cannons. I'll be responsible for handling the problem of bringing you the necessary Magi site gems. Barker had a very high status in the Baruch kingdom. He was the one and only Grand Marshal of the kingdom, and his personal power was also quite terrifying. Soon after Linley had reached the saint level in his human form, Barker had as well. Once he transformed, he was a peak undying warrior saint. Barker, who already had mastered the impose level, wasn't any bit weaker than Asano. Hearing that they had over 30 Magi site cannons, Wat's eyes lit up. Watts jutted his chest out and said firmly, Your Highness, as long as you give me the authority to command our 500,000 soldiers, I have full confidence in my ability to hold our ground at the prefectural city of Cod and repulse the enemies. Very good. Wharton revealed a hint of a smile on his face. The Baruch kingdom actually had over 1 million warriors, not even counting the ordinary city guards. Your Highness. Wat said solemnly. I'm worried that the enemy will come with a force more terrifying and more powerful than we expected. If something like this happens and an irresistible force comes, standing our ground would be dangerous. A terrifying force. Wharton was puzzled. Right. For example, if a saint was to appear, or if one of the legendary, powerful megascore of the Radiant Church was to be sent here, we would be in great danger. Wat said solemnly. Both the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows had spent tremendous time and effort in cultivating their megascore. These two sides all had powerful megascore, and the weakest member of these core was of the 7th ranks, while the highest were archmagi of the 9th rank. A core of over 1,000 powerful magi, with several archmagi of the 9th rank commanding them, could cast terrifyingly powerful magic spells. The power of such a core wasn't one whit inferior to a forbidden level spell of a grand mega saint. This was also why, with the empires normally not permitting saints to get involved in battles, megascore had become a terrifyingly powerful force. The enemy saints will not appear. Linley spoke out. Watts immediately looked at Linley. Seeing that it was Linley who had spoken, he immediately became very respectful. Linley laughed calmly. Don't worry. Neither the Radiant Church nor the Cult of Shadows will send saints out, at least. Also, as for those terrifying megascore you spoke of, if they want to produce forbidden level magic attacks, don't worry, they won't be able to. Linley said calmly. Although they had previously agreed that saints were not to be permitted to get involved in battle, Linley knew exactly how powerful forbidden spells were. A single spell could perhaps destroy the entire prefectural city of Cod, and a terrifyingly high number of people would die. Linley wouldn't be so obstinate and stubborn as to allow an entire city's worth of people, over 1 million lives, to die because of an agreement. Were the lives of 1 million people of less value than an agreement? What's more, these so-called agreements between countries were only binding and effective when nations were on equal levels of strength. If one side was overwhelming powerful, even if they ripped the agreement to shreds and immediately attacked, so what? This was something that was quite commonly seen in the Yulan continent. But of course, Linley would only do such a thing if the enemy megascore jointly cast spells to create an effect on PAR with a forbidden spell. As the commanding general, information constantly flowed to Watts, and he issued one order after another to his subordinates. The news that the Radiant Church's forces had arrived outside the prefectural city of Sherry quickly spread to him. Could it be that the Radiant Church really was going to attack the prefectural city of Sherry? The prefectural city of Sherry already had an army there. Send another army over. The two legions will have a total of 200,000 soldiers. Stand your ground inside the city, and destroy the trees around the prefectural city of Sherry. Don't give the enemy a place to hide and launch ambushes against us. The prefectural city of Sherry definitely isn't the place where the enemy will launch their real attack. They are just trying to tie down our forces. All we need to do is stand our ground. The cult of shadows acted exactly as Watts had predicted. Indeed, they soon joined the fray. The bridge ahead of the prefectural city of Cod must be destroyed. Also, the roads around the prefectural city of Cod must also be destroyed. Don't give any avenue for the enemy forces to easily travel towards us. Force them to attack Cod directly. This order did indeed cause quite a bit of frustration to the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows. Within the city of Cod itself, all the civilians must be relocated. The prefectural city of Cod must become a military fort and must be internally reconfigured for war. One order after another came from the military headquarters, and they were carefully carried out by each of the supervisors in each location. An order came to the Magi-site mines as well. Increase the level of production. Mine at the maximum possible speed. No need to continue to try and disguise your activities. In the prior 12 years, the three powers in the anarchic lands had only engaged in small-scale battles. They had never engaged in something like today's struggle. Even before the battle started, the mobilized forces had already reached a terrifyingly high number. Clearly, this battle was not for training purposes. It was the real deal. In the endless skies, a blue-robed Linley could be seen flying through the air at high speed in the direction of the Cult of Shadows. Linley knew where Ocasey lived, the headquarters of the Cult of Shadows in the anarchic lands, a seemingly ordinary shadow temple. Linley's gaze was cold. Ocasey actually agreed to the Radiant Church's offer. HRMPH. Linley didn't understand this, but the Cult of Shadows actually had no choice either. If they helped Linley, then the Radiant Church's power would essentially be destroyed here in the anarchic lands. They feared that at that time, Linley would suddenly turn on them. It must be understood. Linley's side now consisted of Linley, Beebe, the Barker brothers, and Barker, who had reached the saint level in his human form. This saint team was simply too powerful. The Cult of Shadows wouldn't be able to outfight them. If Linley really did turn on them and ignored their earlier agreement, what would the Cult of Shadows be able to do? They knew that Desri was actually biased towards Linley. Linley's saints were simply too powerful. Only if both the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows were present would Linley be cautious. Once one of the two sides were destroyed, then most likely both would be finished. Saint-level experts cannot participate in battles or kill ordinary people, but I can still kill saints myself. Linley stared at the distant shadow temple. I'll use death to threaten Ocasey. Perhaps that'll help him to wake up. Linley used his spiritual energy to scan the entire shadow temple. HRM, no one there. Linley frowned. The energy around his body began to roil about, and like a flash of lightning, Linley caused the window to shatter soundlessly to dust, which then drifted downwards. Linley entered the room. Where's Ocasey? Linley looked calmly at the golden-haired old man in front of him. The golden-haired old man was one of the most powerful members of the Shadow Temple, a saint. But he was only a mid-stage saint, far weaker than Ocasey. Linley. The old man smiled. Lord Ocasey ordered me to wait for you here, Lord Linley. Let me introduce myself. I am a four-winged fallen angel of the Cult of Shadows. Linley looked calmly at the old man. The old man's attitude was very humble. Lord Ocasey ordered me to inform you that this battle is unavoidable. As for Lord Ocasey himself, he has already returned to the headquarters of the Cult of Shadows. I am the only saint remaining here belonging to the Cult of Shadows. Linley frowned. Ocasey actually fled back home. You aren't afraid that I'll kill you? Linley stared at the old man. A four-winged fallen angel. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 34, A Beast of Burden? Under Linley's gaze, the four-winged fallen angel only smiled. Lord Linley is currently a ranking member of the most powerful experts in the entire Yulan continent. I think you most likely wouldn't lower yourself to attack me. The four-winged fallen angel was nothing more than a mid-stage saint, after all. Even 12 years ago, Linley and Bibi could have effortlessly killed this four-winged fallen angel. Help me send a message to Okasi. Linley glanced at the old man. Lord Linley. Please tell me what you need. The old man said humbly. Linley said calmly, he has chosen to join forces with the Radiant Church. This is an extremely foolish act. In the future, he will definitely regret it. The old man nodded. I will definitely convey your words to Lord Okasi. However, I also want to tell you something, Lord Linley. In reality, in the anarchic lands, the threat you pose to us is even greater than the Radiant Church. Oh. Linley laughed. He understood their meaning. Right now, the only people who posed a threat to him in the Yulan continent were the 5 prime saints. Linley's understanding of the laws wasn't a match for those 5 prime saints. After all, whether it was the profound truths of the earth or the profound truths of the wind, he had only reached the level of Higginson and Hayward. However, the natural abilities of the Dragon Blood Warriors were simply too great. Dragon Blood Warriors were 10 times stronger than ordinary people to begin with. Thus, even though the 5 prime saints had a much greater understanding of the laws, if they were to truly fight against each other, it would be hard to say who was stronger and who was weaker. Neither the Cult of Shadows nor the Radiant Church had an expert capable of fighting Linley one-on-one. Linley being in such a strong position naturally filled the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows with fear. Naturally, these two organizations would secretly have the desire to work together. After all, no matter how much territory they held, it was the experts of the organizations that determined their fate. I understand what you mean. Linley suddenly felt that the four-winged fallen angel was rather amusing. However, I don't have much interest in territory. Your Cult of Shadows doesn't need to fear too much if you ally with the Baruch Kingdom. The old man shook his head. Lord Linley, an expert such as yourself isn't interested in worldly power, but what about your little brother, King Warden? Even if your little brother isn't interested, what about the successors to the Baruch Kingdom? They will continuously expand their territory and have the desire to unify the entire anarchic lands. Linley was briefly startled, and then he laughed. You are an interesting fellow. Linley chuckled as he glanced at the old man, then turned and disappeared from the room. After Linley left, the old man secretly let out a sigh of relief. Although from start to finish, Linley hadn't acted against him at all, even just standing there, he had given the fallen angel a sense of dread. He understood that the difference in power between the two was simply too great. Within the prefectural city of Cod. Right now, a large number of civilians were being evacuated. The prestige of the royal clan of the Baruch Kingdom was very high. Once the order came down, given how imminently threatening the chance of war was, these civilians all obediently evacuated. Of course, their future homes would all be arranged for. What was previously a 3-story hotel had become the military command center for the prefectural city of Cod. Watts was standing in front of the 3rd-floor window, staring down at the evacuation. In his heart, he secretly let out a sigh. He understood that the homes of these civilians would definitely be destroyed. To make the prefectural city of Cod a military fort, many residential homes had to be destroyed, and tunnels and pits were dug everywhere. Although the king had spent an enormous amount of money for the sake of relocating these civilians, for them to give up the homes they had spent 12 years establishing still deeply hurt these civilians. Under the unifying force of the kingdom, their lives are much better than 12 years ago. Watts looked like he was a middle-aged man, but in reality he was in his 90s. He knew exactly how chaotic the anarchic lands had been in the past. The orphans alone were countless in number. From this, one could see how brutal the wars had been. Suddenly, the sound of knocking could be heard. "Enter." Watts said calmly. "Milord, the Grand Marshal has come." The soldier reported immediately upon entering. "His Lordship, the Grand Marshal." Watts immediately said. "Then quick, bring me to him." The citizens of the Baruch kingdom all naturally worshipped those talented, powerful experts who supported the kingdom. The number one person was of course Linley. After him was His Majesty, King Wharton, and then, the leader of the 5 war gods, the undying warrior saint, Barker. Within a courtyard behind the hotel, Barker was seated, enjoying some wine by himself, when Watts ran in and delivered a military salute. "Lord Grand Marshal." Barker raised his head and glanced at him, then chuckled, "Oh, it is Watts. Come on over. Be at ease." Over the past 12 years, the kingdom had discovered many talented people. Barker and his brothers normally spent their time training. They rarely got involved in other matters. Watts, however, was a very promising prospect whom Barker had discovered. "Come, drink." Barker poured Watts a cup of wine. Watts asked, "Lord Grand Marshal, the purpose of your journey this time is?" Barker laughed. "Didn't I tell you last time? I told you I'd bring you over 30 Magi-side cannons." Watts' eyes immediately lit up. Barker continued, "I brought a total of 36. These 36 Magi-side cannons have already been prepared." "Already prepared?" Watts was worried. "But how would you bring them over?" "Lord Grand Marshal, those Magi-side cannons must be in a distant location. Bringing them over will take a huge amount of time." "Will we have enough time?" Barker shook his head and laughed. "For the sake of these Magi-side cannons, I spent all day traveling." Watts was confused. What did the Grand Marshal mean? Barker waved his hand in the direction of some empty space in the courtyard. Instantly, one Magi-side cannon after another appeared out of thin air. They were divided into 4 rows, with 9 Magi-side cannons in each row. Each of them were 2 or 3 meters long, and the width of the cannon mouths were roughly half a meter. The cannons were covered with complicated magical runes. Beneath the sunlight, the Magi-side cannons gleamed with a mesmerizing light. 36 Magi-side cannons. This, Watts was excited. "Watts, haven't you heard of interspatial rings?" Barker snickered. "Fortunately, mine is pretty big. It was just able to squeeze these 36 Magi-side cannons. However, for the sake of these 36 Magi-side cannons, I ran around half the Yulon continent and flew for a whole day. Only then did I manage to collect them all and bring them here." These 36 Magi-side cannons were all large-caliber cannons. The size of the cannon mouths and the complicated runes on them were proof of the level of these cannons. Cannons on this level generally couldn't be bought from the various empires, but through the connections of the Dawson conglomerate, they were able to get quite a few. Through storing them in his interspatial ring, Barker was able to easily bring them all over. These 36 Magi-side cannons are equivalent to 36 Magi of the 8th rank, and they have virtually limitless mage force. Barker laughed. Most Magi of the 8th rank could only use spells of the 8th rank 3 times before running out of mage force. Even if they had powerful Magi staffs, they would perhaps only be able to cast them 4 or 5 times. But these Magi-side cannons could continue to attack ceaselessly so long as they had Magi-side gems to fuel them. "Lord Grand Marshal, with these 36 Magi-side cannons, if we use them correctly, they would definitely be able to match the effect of hundreds of thousands of soldiers." Watts' face was filled with irrepressible excitement, and then he laughed. "But of course, I would need enough Magi-side gems. Magi-side cannons burn through money. With each blast, it was as though gold coins were being shot out of the cannon. Without enough wealth, who would be willing to use them?" Don't worry. Soon, the Magicite gems will be brought over as well. Barker said with certainty. Our enemies are over 1,000,000 in number. When the battle starts, these 36 Magicite cannons will definitely use up an astonishing amount of Magicite gems. What's looked at Barker? Lord Grand Marshal, to bring over such a high amount of Magicite gems will most likely need many people. Barker nodded. He could store the Magicite cannons in his interspatial ring, but the size of the ring was limited. If he wanted to move a large amount of Magicite gems, his interspatial ring would be too small. He'd have to make over 10 trips. At the Magicite mines, they no longer worked under any disguises or pretenses, since the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows had already mobilized their armies. They were excavating at full speed. These Magicite mines weren't like copper or iron mines. Those materials needed to be smelted. It was a great deal of work. But Magicite gems only needed to be washed, and then they would be divided into grades. They were one of the easier types of minerals to mine for. The only thing difficult about them was that Magicite gems were very tough. The higher the level of Magicite gem, the tougher they were, far more so than ordinary stones. Ordinary tools wouldn't be able to dig them out at all. These miners were all specially selected. They had at least the strength of a warrior of the 3rd rank. Their strength, combined with some special excavating tools, just barely allowed them to dig the gems out. Clang! Clang! Bang! Digging sounds rang out non-stop. Many people were here digging. Although they weren't individually fast, all added together, the result was that bags stuffed with Magicite gems were constantly being brought out, then divided by level into piles. It had been 2 months since they had started mining. Despite that, they had only finished digging out part of the mine. What's going on? They told us to bring such a huge iron chest and store Magicite gems in it. Such a huge iron chest, if used to hold Magicite gems, would weigh several million pounds. How would we possibly deliver them? The garrison troops stared at those enormous metal boxes which were 50 meters long, 30 meters wide, and 30 meters tall. They were all puzzled. These boxes were very sturdy. Why use such huge iron boxes to store Magicite gems? Although a single Magicite gem wasn't too heavy, a full box of them would definitely be several million pounds in weight. Several million pounds worth of Magicite gems, how would ordinary troops possibly move them? It wouldn't be so bad if they were divided into smaller shipments, but all together. Not even an interspatial ring would be able to hold such a large amount. After having mined for 2 months, the amount of Magicite gems they had mined had finally filled this massive chest. They used a large amount of steel chains to bind the entire chest securely. Every single chain was a meter thick, and there were dozens around the chest. Later, giant dragons will come to move the chest. All of you be quiet. Don't cause too much of a ruckus. The military officer's order came out. Giant dragon? All of the soldiers stared in the sky as they waited. It was late at night. The full moon hung high in the sky. Indeed, a massive tyrant WYRM over 100 meters long appeared in the sky. The soldiers below felt the world grow dark, and the natural awesome presence of the tyrant WYRM made the pulses of these soldiers speed up. The 100-meter-long tyrant WYRM landed on the ground. Master had me, a noble saint-level dragon, to carry things for him. Geez, the tyrant WYRM, Plakeet, secretly sighed. His fiery, cart-sized eyes swept the nearby soldiers with a glance. His massive nostrils snorted, then his 2 draconic claws grabbed those sturdy chains. The massive tyrant WYRM easily lifted that iron chest which weighed millions of pounds into the air. Beneath the glow of the moonlight, it flew off with the massive chest towards the south, in the direction of the prefectural city of Cod. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 35, The Call to Assemble. The prefectural city of Cod was a city with several hundreds of thousands of citizens and which took up a huge amount of space. Given the local geography as well as the intentional destruction caused by the Baruch kingdom's forces, the Radiant Church's side was forced to attack the city from the south and the east gates. The north gate was actually open, as they had no fear of the enemy attacking from that side. The day slowly grew bright, and many soldiers who had been on guard duty at night switched shifts. Logically speaking, there should have been fewer soldiers outside in the morning, but the new shift discovered to their surprise, that there were many people outside, and it seemed as though the soldiers that had been on duty weren't tired at all. Instead, they were excited. "Buddy, time to change shifts." "What are you guys talking about?" Many soldiers ran to their shift-changing positions. "A titanic dragon, a titanic dragon." It had no wings, but it was able to fly. It was a saint-level titanic dragon. Wow! It was so huge. It was like a mountain. The night shift garrison soldiers were talking excitedly amongst themselves. "What dragon?" The new arrival was shocked. The night shift garrison soldier explained excitedly, "Tonight, an enormous dragon flew over, there were a lot of soldiers waiting to move things. Look, they're still moving things." That enormous metal case was delivered by the flying dragon. The new arrival looked over. He saw a massive box at least 50 meters long. He sucked a cold breath. How could people possibly move such an enormous box? Perhaps it truly was a massive dragon that had carried it here. A large number of soldiers were currently right in the middle of the metal box, carrying out bulging sacks. The news about the giant dragon quickly spread throughout the army camp, causing the morale of the soldiers of Cod to rise. Their side had the help of a massive dragon, and a saint-level one who could fly, at that. They would definitely be successful. But the enemy forces, by contrast. The Liuyan River was a fairly large river. Although it wasn't one of the top 3 rivers of the anarchic lands, it was still 50 or 60 meters wide, and caused endless headaches for the forces of the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows. The bridge that had been erected at enormous expense had been destroyed by the Baruch kingdom itself. Building it was hard, but destroying it was simple. The Cardinal of the Radiant Church, Guillermo, and the Dark Cardinal of the Cult of Shadows, Weiss Porter, stared at the river, frowning. To build a floating bridge was simple, but how could a million-man army possibly cross on such a floating bridge? In addition, some of their war machines were extremely large. How would they ship them across? "We have to immediately build a large number of floating bridges to let the soldiers cross." Guillermo frowned, urging. "Then what about the war machines?" Someone below asked. To attack a city, one had to use war machines such as the escalades, which were dozens of meters wide. How could something so large and so heavy be shipped across? But building a large bridge would take an enormous amount of time, even the time it would take to let the cement settle down and harden would be time-consuming. There wasn't enough time. When the time comes, magic will have to be used to freeze the water into ice. Guillermo frowned. It was currently August, the hottest time of the year. In addition, this was a very large river. To freeze the river solid enough to allow the escalades and the other large war machines to cross would require at least an archmagus of the 9th rank. The prefectural city of Cod was constantly being renovated as well, preparing all sorts of war machines of its own. The Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows continued to plan ways to bring across their million-man army. In the anarchic lands, warfare was about to break out at any moment. At this time, the O'Brien Empire. War God Mountain. Whoosh! The war god, O'Brien, suddenly appeared at the door to his cave. The war god, O'Brien, stood there, as straight as a spear, emanating a fierce air. His scarlet-red hair fluttered freely, and a hint of a smile was on his face. It had been a long time since he had left the cave. A flash of light suddenly appeared in front of him. It was Fane. "Master." Fane stood respectfully in front of the war god, O'Brien. The war god, as soon as he had stepped outside, had summoned Fane. The war god glanced at his disciple. Fane, spend the next period of time in training and in preparation. The war god's voice trailed off, but Fane's eyes lit up. He looked at his master. Master, are you saying? Right. It should be starting again soon, because that person in the forest of darkness has instructed me to go to him. The words of the war god O'Brien made Fane's heart begin to tremble. Fane knew that the deity in the forest of darkness rarely got involved in any matters. For him to now have the war god go over most likely meant, it was time to once again open the necropolis of the gods. The war god O'Brien immediately transformed into a fiery streak of light, flashing across the sky and quickly disappearing into the eastern horizon. His speed was simply astonishing, far beyond the likes of Linley and the others. On a mountain peak in the mountain range of magical beasts, a devilish youth with dark golden eyes and a long robe stood on the peak, staring at the east. There was a knife scar in the middle of his forehead. Only people who knew him were aware that this wasn't actually a knife scar. It was the powerful weapon of the king of the mountain range of magical beasts. The king of the mountain range of magical beasts, Dylan. HRMPH, that old bastard. Dylan stared towards the east. He had received the summons from that person in the forest of darkness as well. Although Dylan disliked him, he didn't dare to disobey either. He was like this 5,000 years ago, and now, he's still like this. The Yulan continent, that old bastard is the most comfortable person here. Swish. Dylan's body flashed, and a dark golden light streaked toward the eastern horizon, then disappeared. The speed seemed to be even more astonishing than that of the war god O'Brien. On a cloud-shrouded peak near the imperial capital of the Yulan Empire. Long silver hair flowing freely. A shining jade mask. Moon-white robes. The person looked like an angel who didn't belong in this world, or perhaps a spirit. But from the figure, this person seemed very willowy. The person looked somewhat like a woman. This was the oldest human deity in the Yulan continent, the pillar of support for the Yulan Empire, the High Priest. Is it beginning? The High Priest stared towards the northeast. The glowing jade mask caused his face to be hidden. Who knows how many people will die this time? The High Priest let out a sigh, and then a wind arose nearby. When the wind died down, the High Priest had disappeared as well. Within a graceful entertainment area in the Rohald Empire. Kman, give me a kiss. Still dressed in a loose robe, and that lazy smile still on his face, Caesar was currently cuddling a beautiful woman, teasing her while drinking wine. But just as they were having fun, his face suddenly froze. Leave for now. Caesar waved his hand. The beautiful woman clearly was confused. I told you to leave. Caesar frowned. The slight aura he was now emanating made the woman's heart quail, and she immediately left, not daring to protest. Frowning, Caesar let out an unhappy grumble. The forest of darkness, oh, your lordship, your mightiness, someone like you has no need for a minor figure like me. I just reached the deity level not too long ago. Why do I have to go with you? Although he was annoyed, Caesar didn't dare to disobey. His 5,000 years of life had let Caesar know quite a bit about the background history of the Yulan continent. A black shadow flashed, and Caesar disappeared as though he had teleported. If Bibi and Asano had seen this, they would have been shocked. For someone to be able to reach such a level in the shadow shape technique was simply too terrifying. In the air above the forest of darkness, the four great deities flew together, side by side. Sonic booms could be heard continuously. The war god O'Brien, his gaze firm. The quiet, natural high priest. The cold, devilish Dylan. And the rather lazy, unhappy-looking Caesar who flew a bit farther away from the others. Caesar, why the unhappy face? You are a deity now. You should be happy. The gentle voice of the high priest rang out. Caesar forced out a smile. Lord Catherine Chi Xi Lin, I just reached the deity level not long ago. When we meet with any danger, I hope you will help me, Lord Catherine. Otherwise, my little life might be over. Your little life will be over. The war god's firm, powerful voice rang out, and he swept Caesar with a lightning gaze. You have entered the deity level, and you train in the assassination and escaping aspects of the darkness element. Amongst the four of us, your escaping ability should be the greatest. Caesar could only let out a few resigned chuckles. As for the king of the mountain range of magical beasts, Dylan, he flew silently. Dylan. The high priest looked at him, speaking with a voice that was warm and friendly. Congratulations on escaping from the Gabados Gebeta prison. I must say, your luck is quite good. Dylan glanced at the high priest. Catherine, my luck isn't as good as yours. Just as these people were chatting. Enough. There will plenty of time to chat later. Hurry up. A hoarse, ancient voice suddenly rang out in the ears of the four deities. The four deities immediately increased their speed, transforming into rays of light as they entered the depths of the forest of darkness. Across the Yulan continent, the vast majority of saints, such as Linley and Desri, didn't know that the five deities were coming together in the forest of darkness. Linley was actually in the prefectural city of Cod. The upcoming battle was simply too important. But soon after Linley arrived at the prefectural city of Cod. Lord Linley. Barker suddenly ran over. What is it, Barker? Linley smiled at Barker, who hurriedly said, Lord Linley, come take a look with me. Someone told me that there was a change in the Magi site mines. I took a look and I discovered something incredible. Oh. Linley was curious now. Come, let's take a look. Linley immediately followed Barker as they flew to the Magi site mine at high speed. Currently, parts of the Magi site mines had been sealed off, preventing anyone from going in deeper to investigate. When Barker and Linley arrived, those soldiers immediately withdrew. Right here. Barker led Linley inside. They went deeper into the mines, which was lit by torches. Barker explained, someone told me that when we excavated our way deep into the heart of the mine, we discovered that the quality of the Magi site gems increased by a terrifying level. They are better than what the historical standard for top-class Magi site gems are at, but they are still terrifyingly tough. That's why I came. Linley instantly spread out his spiritual energy. Linley suddenly discovered, that at the end of the excavation, there was a spherical nuclear area. This was the center of the mine. You say that the quality of the Magi site gems reached a terrifyingly good level. Right. From what I could tell, the quality of the Magi site gems here are comparable to the cores of magical beasts of the 7th rank, and some deeper inside can even compare to Magi site cores of beasts of the 8th rank. A very small number can even compare to the Magi site cores of magical beasts of the 9th rank. Barker sighed in amazement. Linley's heart trembled in shock. Linley. Do you know what this core of the mine is? Barker asked. Linley shook his head. He had just discovered many Magi site gems clustered around this area when he had used his spiritual energy, but he couldn't find out anything else at all. We're here. Barker pointed to the front. The sides of the excavation area were filled with half-translucent gems which carried a terrifying amount of force. Any of them could compare to the Magi site cores of magical beasts of the 7th rank. Linley, look ahead. Barker was pointing in the direction of a door. This door had a strange spatial ripple in front of it. But just earlier, when Linley had used his spiritual energy to search, he hadn't discovered this door at all. Book 10, Baruch, Chapter 36, The Door. Hunting magical beasts of the 8th and 9th ranks was an extremely difficult task. One could imagine how valuable their Magi site cores were. However, the gems in these Magi site mines had actually reached the equivalence of the 7th and 8th ranked Magi site cores, with some even comparable to magicite cores of the 9th rank. Under the light of the torch, the semi-translucent magicite gems produced a bewildering pattern of lights. And yet, at the end of the mining tunnel was a door. A door that should not have existed. I cannot find this door with my spiritual energy. It is as though it does not exist. What is this door? Linley was surprised and puzzled. His spiritual energy couldn't penetrate past this door at all. How could he dare to rashly barge in? Linley turned to look at Barker. "Barker, did you go in yet?" Barker nodded. "I did. It was precisely because I went in that I felt shocked. But Lord, it's best if you go in after transforming. When you step past the door, you will be attacked by a powerful surge of energy. If your defense is insufficient, the door alone will kill intruders," Barker said solemnly. Linley was secretly shocked. Barker was an undying warrior saint, the type of supreme warrior with the highest defense. For him to say this, one could imagine how powerful the attack was. After removing his shirt and baring his upper body, Linley immediately dragon-formed. Instantly, his body was covered by deep azure draconic scales, and he stared at this mysterious door with his now dark golden eyes before walking in. Slay-a-a-a-a-a-osh. A knife-like surge of energy wildly chopped at Linley as soon as he walked in the door, slashing at him millions of times, creating sparks atop of Linley's deep azure draconic scales. As soon as Linley entered, he felt shocked. The scene within the door was totally contrary to Linley's expectations. Behind the door, was a translucent bubble of a pocket dimension. This pocket dimension was a spherical dimension, only 10 meters long. A spherical dimension, 10 meters long. And this spherical dimension was organized like a training room. It only had a simple desk, bed, and chair. It was protected by that outer barrier, preventing outsiders from easily coming inside. Raising his head and staring at the air above, then at his surroundings, he saw that outside the membrane was chaotic space. Multicolored chaotic space, with rips in reality occasionally appearing and disappearing. Linley felt awe just looking at that terrifying power. "Lord Linley." Barker entered as well. "When I came here, I also felt it was hard to believe. Tell me, what do you think this is?" Linley took a deep breath. "From what I know, the countless planes of existence are all held within chaotic space. For example, in the Yulon continent, if you continue to head a direction to the very end, you will be able to see chaotic space. Once your strength reaches a certain level, you might be able to open your own pocket dimension within the chaotic space." Linley carefully inspected this spherical dimension. And this spherical dimension that seems like a training room is most likely something which an extremely powerful expert created for training. This expert is most likely of the Yulon continent. Or perhaps it would be better to say, he used to be. Linley was filled with nothing but the utmost of admiration for the expert who had created this pocket dimension. Create a pocket dimension. Barker sighed in amazement as well. Didn't the 4 overgods create the 4 higher planes? Didn't the 7 principal sovereigns create the 7 divine planes? Linley laughed. There are experts capable of opening their own pocket dimension. Linley understood that even demigods only had the most rudimentary god realm technique. Someone who could create a stable pocket dimension in the middle of chaotic space was definitely an extraordinary person. Barker's eyes lit up. "Lord Linley, now I know why there is a massive magicite gem mine here. Look. The elemental essence density here is terrifyingly high. Even someone like me, who has poor elemental essence affinity, can clearly sense all sorts of elements here. And aside from elemental essence, there is a unique energy here as well." Linley, too, could sense the thick density of natural elemental essence here. Earth, fire, water, wind, thunder, light, darkness. The density of all the elements here was unbelievably high. Aside from these 7, Linley could sense other sorts of energy as well. there was a sort of energy that was rather similar to Zisler's, a terrifying destructive energy, and also an energy filled with life. This should be the energy belonging to the four overgods. Linley knew that aside from the 7 elemental types of energy, there were also 4 types of unique, profound energy. Linley looked at Barker. That door should be a connection between the Yulon continent and this dimension. Most likely, this secret room attracted a great deal of elemental energy, which created a huge Magi-site mine surrounding the door. However, the mysterious expert who trained here should have left a long, long time ago. Linley was very certain of this. Oh. Barker looked at Linley questioningly. Without this mysterious expert training here, there is no way such a large amount of elemental essence would have been drawn here. We've been in the anarchic lands for a while now. If we didn't come mining here, who would have discovered all of these Magi-site gems? Linley laughed. Logically speaking, to form such a massive Magi-site deposit, there should have been a huge amount of elemental essence here, a terrifying amount. Most likely, the experts of the entire Yulon continent would have sensed it. But no one in our history has ever mentioned such a thing. Thus, the large amount of elemental energy being drawn here should have been something that happened an extremely long time ago. As he spoke, Linley suddenly shut his eyes and sat down. Lord Linley. Barker called out softly. But Linley seemed to have not noticed him at all, as he sat there in the meditative position quietly. The pulse of the world. And its massiveness. The ferociousness of the wind, and its gentle agility. The scorching heat of the fire, and its explosiveness. The softness of the water, like an endless field of cotton. Within this pocket dimension, Linley could sense nature with greater clarity than he ever had before. Right now, he could also sense with 100 times his previous clarity the throbbing pulse of the world, and the unique tempos possessed by the wind. He could also clearly sense the path he should take next. Even the average elemental affinity he had for fire elemental essence was magnified. Linley could clearly sense the fire elemental essence to such a high level that it was as strong as his normal affinity was for earth elemental essence outside of this pocket dimension. Although the water elemental essence was still quite indistinct, Linley could still sense its unique rhythm and flows. And he could also sense the unique energy coming from the four overgods. So this is how the throbbing pulse of the world works. Linley felt a surge of joy in his heart. He felt as though his previous training was akin to listening to the sound of a clock from thousands of kilometers away. The sound of the clock was indistinct. But now, he was next to a grandfather clock, listening to the sound. He could clearly sense and hear the unique rhythms of that clock now. The mysteries of the throbbing pulse of the world suddenly became clear to him. 256 layers of vibrations. Haha, so that's how it works. Here in the Yulon continent, it feels as though there are countless layers to the throbbing pulse of the world. But now it seems that although the throbbing pulse of the world has layer after layer, that is just the countless mysteries contained with a single layer which carries infinite mysteries, encapsulating all of the mysteries of my 256 layers. Linley instantly understood what his path of training should be. In the past, Linley's training was similar to reading a book and making the book thicker. But now, what he had to do was make the book thin again. And the book was, The Throbbing Pulse of the World, one of the profound truths of the elemental laws of Earth. Upon having reached the 256 layers, I am halfway through my mastery of the throbbing pulse of the world. Now, what I must do is, reduce the profound truths of the earth to a single layered wave. Originally, he went from 1 to 256, and now, he needed to go back to 1. Whenever Linley was able to contain all of the profound truths of that law within a single vibration, and was able to utilize the full force of the throbbing pulse of the world in that vibration, only then would he be at the level of mastery. Most likely by then, with a simple blow from his sword, he would be able to shake his opponent into a pile of mud. A precious training ground. Linley opened his eyes, now filled with shocked delight. Lord Linley. Barker saw that Linley had woken up. He finally relaxed. Lord, you sat there for 3 days. 3 days. Linley knew that when immersed in sensing the laws, the flow of time would become imperceptible. However, it was worth it. He had been stuck at the bottleneck with the 256 layers for over a year. Without the mysterious training room, perhaps he would have been like many other experts and would be stuck at this bottleneck for dozens or hundreds of years, waiting for that moment of sudden insight. Only then would he know how to proceed. No wonder that mysterious expert created his own pocket dimension training room. Indeed, training within a pocket dimension in chaotic space allows one to sense the various laws with a much greater clarity. Linley had already become aware of the benefits of this place. Although there weren't any treasures or divine artifacts in this room, to an expert training in the various laws, this room itself was a priceless treasure. Thank you for your gift, Elder. Linley bowed formally towards the training room. Turning his head to look at the puzzled Barker, he said, Barker, let's go out for now. Most likely in a few days, the battle at the prefectural city of Cod will occur. As he spoke, Linley walked out of the pocket dimension. Barker was somewhat puzzled. Why had Linley bowed towards that expert who was currently who knows where? He didn't understand how grateful Linley felt. He had been meditating and pondering for over a year, but hadn't improved at all. That sort of stifling feeling was quite uncomfortable. No one knew how long Linley would have been stuck at that bottleneck. But thanks to the secret room, his path of training in the laws would be a bit easier to walk. Nobody is permitted to enter this excavation tunnel. In the future, no one is allowed to mine here as well. As he walked out of the tunnel, he gave the order to the military officers nearby. This pocket dimension was something which one could only dream. It was far more precious than any sort of divine artifact. Perhaps even the war god or the high priest would feel envious and desirous if they found out about it. Demigods shouldn't have the ability to create a pocket dimension. Linley secretly thought to himself. Linley had the feeling that the ability to create a stable pocket dimension within chaotic space, even a small one, was something only a terrifyingly powerful expert could do. Linley and Barker flew side by side towards the prefectural city of Cod. The two headed directly to the military headquarters. Within the third floor of that hotel, Watts and his assistants were in a loud argument, but upon seeing Linley and Barker come in, all of them saluted respectfully. Watts, what is the current situation? Linley asked. Watts hurriedly reported, Lord Linley, according to our investigation, the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows are constantly sending people over the river. However, their numbers are too great, and they have all sorts of siege weapons. Most likely, they won't be finished with the river crossing until nightfall. Linley nodded slightly. I heard arguing just then. What are you arguing about? Barker asked questioningly. Watts said, it's like this. Over 60 to 70,000 troops have already crossed the river. Their forces are somewhat in disarray, which is only natural following a river crossing. My assistants are recommending that we seize the opportunity to go out and attack them. However, I vetoed that idea. Watts said.